Hello guys, welcome to DXD Tales. So in this video, we will see, what if Issei unlocked the Omega Authority system and rewrote the laws of reality? If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Authority Awakens. Blood spattered across ancient stone as Issei Hyodo crashed through the monastery wall. Fragments of his scale mail armor disintegrated into crimson particles, the manifestation of his sacred gear failing as consciousness flickered like a dying ember. Rizvam Levon Lucifer stood 30 meters away, pale fingers splayed in sea. Casual dismissal of the attack that had just pulverized the young devil. How disappointingly predictable, Rizvam sighed, brushing invisible dust from his immaculate white suit. The Securite, terror of the supernatural world, reduced to broken bones and labored breathing. I expected more. Issei's vision tunneled, peripheral awareness fading to gray as he struggled to inhale through shattered ribs. The monastery's ancient stones felt cold against his back, the scent of incense mingling with the copper tang of his own blood. Somewhere distant, he heard Rias screaming his name, the sound distorted as if traveling through water. Didraig, what's happening to me? Issei directed the thought toward his draconic partner, but received only fragmentary responses, the mental connection fracturing. Partner. Critical. Systems failing. Something. Awakening. Pain transcended ordinary sensation, becoming something crystalline and mathematical. Each nerve ending transmitted data rather than agony. Issei's perception fragmented, then expanded. The monastery stones beneath him suddenly revealed molecular structures, complex lattices of silicon, oxygen, aluminum. The air itself separated into component gases, nitrogen and oxygen molecules dancing in predictable patterns. Rizvim's approach registered as probability vectors, footfalls disturbing air currents that Issei could now perceive as equations rather than sensations. The devil's existence itself appeared as intricately coded information, a complex matrix of supernatural energies, biological systems, and metaphysical constants. This can't be real, Issei thought. I'm hallucinating before death. Yet the information continued streaming into his consciousness. The world's underlying structure revealed itself, not as matter and energy but as interwoven patterns of mathematical constants, universal laws expressed through elegant algorithms. Reality itself appeared as an infinitely complex program running on some incomprehensible cosmic hardware. And strangest of all, Issei could see places where modifications could be made. Fascinating last moments, Rizvam commented, standing over Issei's broken form. Your eyes, they're changing color. Not the typical draconic transformation. He knelt, scientific curiosity momentarily overriding sadism. What exactly are you seeing, Securite? Issei couldn't answer. Hi's awareness had expanded beyond his physical form, perceiving the intricate frameworks supporting existence itself. Within his mind, a structure manifested, an interface unlike anything he'd encountered before. Not visual, not tactile, but something that directly engaged his consciousness. Words formed in his understanding. Omega Authority System initializing. Reality Perception Module. Active. Reality Manipulation Protocols. Standby. Administrative access. Pending. No final words. How disappointing. Rizvam formed a lance of demonic energy, its molecular structure appearing to Issei as modifiable code. Your generation lacks the proper appreciation for dramatic death scenes. The lance descended toward Issei's heart. Without conscious thought, Issei reached toward the pattern comprising the demonic construct. He didn't move physically. His body remained broken and immobile, but his consciousness extended, touching the mathematical structure of Rizvim's attack. A simple parameter change, adjusting a value from positive to negative. The lance reversed direction instantly, impaling its creator through the shoulder. What? Rizvam staggered backward, genuine shock replacing arrogance. Impossible. Issei rose slowly, bones knitting together under the direction of his newfound perception. He didn't consciously heal himself. Rather, he recognized the discrepancy between his body's current state and its optimal configuration, then watched as reality adjusted to resolve the inconsistency. What did you do? Rizvam demanded, extracting the lance from his shoulder with a grimace. That wasn't demonic power or dragon energy. Issei opened his mouth to respond, but his vocal cords produced sound waves structured differently than intended. The air molecules around him vibrated according to mathematical patterns he hadn't specified. I can see everything, he said, but the words emerged as, reality consists of mutable parameters. Rizvim's expression shifted from confusion to calculation. You've manifested something unexpected. How fascinating. This requires thorough examination. He gestured, creating a containment field of demonic energy. Issei perceived the field. D is interconnected equations, barrier strength, permeability, dimensional anchoring. Without understanding precisely how, he identified the primary function variable and inverted it. The containment field immediately reversed, imprisoning Rizvim instead. This is not devil magic, Rizvim said, testing the barrier with concentrated energy. His attacks dissipated harmlessly against the mathematically perfect containment. Nor dragon power, nor any system I recognize. What exactly are you, Hyodo Issei? The interface within Issei's mind updated. Reality manipulation protocols. Active. Administrative access. Initializing. The monastery walls around them suddenly appeared as modifiable structures. Issei could perceive the stone's physical parameters, the gravitational constants affecting them, the temporal properties of their existence. With a thought, he adjusted the chronological degradation rate. Centuries of erosion occurred in seconds. The ancient stone crumbled to dust around them, leaving only the floor intact. Sunlight streamed into the newly opened space, illuminating Rizvim's shocked expression. You're rewriting physical laws, the super devil whispered, genuine fear flickering behind his eyes. This shouldn't be possible without. A blinding light interrupted whatever revelation Rizvim had approached. Rias Grimori and her peerage materialized nearby, accompanied by Searzex Lucifer and a contingent of devil forces. Issei. Rias rushed forward, then stopped abruptly. What happened to you? Issei saw her concern expressed as emotional energy patterns, chemical reactions translating to mathematical expressions of worry, relief, and confusion. Her crimson hair registered as specific wavelengths of light reflection, the molecular structure of each strand visible to his enhanced perception. I'm perceiving things differently, he managed, forcing his speech patterns to conform to standard communication matrices. Searzex approached cautiously, emanating from him in complex waveforms. Rizvim contained, and the monastery, destroyed. His gaze fixed on Issei. Your eyes. They're displaying algorithmic sequences, Ajuka Beelzebub said, appearing from a transportation circle. The Satan scientist approached with measured steps, instruments manifesting in his hands. Fascinating. He's perceiving base reality. What does that mean? Rias demanded. Ajuka's analysis devices presented as primitive tools to Issei now, sampling only surface manifestations of infinitely complex systems. It means, Ajuka said slowly, that Issei is saying what most of us cannot, the fundamental code underlying existence itself. Rizvim laughed despite his imprisonment. He's not just seeing it, Ajuka. He's editing it. The boy has somehow accessed administrator privileges to reality. His eyes narrowed. The question is, how? Before anyone could respond, Issei sensed a disturbance, not physical but mathematical. A discontinuity in the universal constants, approaching rapidly. The air before them distorted, equations warping as something pressed against the fabric of conventional existence. We have a problem, Issei stated, perceiving threat patterns emerge from the distortion. Something's coming through. The discontinuity expanded, forming a perfectly circular aperture 2 meters in diameter. Within it, conventional physics ceased, replaced by alternative mathematical frameworks Issei could barely comprehend. A form emerged, its structure defying normal dimensional constraints. The entity appeared vaguely humanoid but construct. From geometries that shouldn't function in 3-dimensional space. Its body contained angles that simultaneously measured different values, surfaces that were both solid and permeable. It spoke without sound, mathematical principles rearranging to transmit meaning directly. Anomalous access detected. Unauthorized modification of baseline parameters. Investigation unit deployed. Searzex moved protectively before his sister. What is that thing? It's responding to me, Issei realized, the Omega interface in his mind displaying warning notifications. To what I just did. Identity. Hyodo Issei. Status: Unauthorized System Administrator. Assessment required. The entity extended an appendage that existed simultaneously in multiple positions. Reality distorted around it, conventional. Physics straining to accommodate its impossible structure. Ajuka created a protective barrier, but the entity passed through it as if the magical construct didn't exist. Conventional defenses are useless, the Satan warned. It's operating on fundamental principles. Issei stepped forward, perceiving the entity's structure through his enhanced awareness. It wasn't evil or malevolent, merely functional. Like an automated security system responding to unexpected activity. I can communicate with it, he said, allowing his consciousness to interface directly with the mathematical patterns comprising the entity. Identify purpose of intrusion, the entity demanded. Issei transmitted back. Accidental access. Unintentional activation. The entity paused, processing. Verification required. Submit to analysis. What's happening? Rias asked, watching Issei stand motionless before the impossible creature. They're communicating through mathematical principles, Ajuka explained, instruments recording frantically. Direct conceptual exchange. The entity extended its appendage toward Issei's forehead. Instead of resisting, he allowed the contact. Information flooded his consciousness, stray. Ams of incomprehensible data about cosmic structures, reality maintenance protocols, administrative hierarchies beyond human comprehension. Subject classification. Emergent administrator. Origin. Natural evolution. Status. Provisional authorization pending observation. The appendage withdrew. The entity's form began reconfiguring, compressing into a more conventional three-dimensional structure. Within moments, it had assumed a roughly humanoid shape constructed from shimmering mathematical symbols that constantly rearranged themselves. I am observer, it stated, now using audible speech. Quote, tasked with monitoring unauthorized access to baseline reality parameters. Your activation was detected but verified as evolutionary emergence rather than intrusive breach. Rizvam laughed from within his containment field. The cosmic bureaucracy arrives. How delightful. Observer turned toward Rizvam. This entity possesses restricted knowledge. Containment protocols appropriate. What exactly are you? Sirzex asked cautiously. A functional aspect of the Void Collective, Observer answered. We maintain reality integrity across dimensional boundaries. The one designated, Issei Hyodo, has manifested access capabilities previously unobserved in this reality framework. Issei's interface updated. Administrative access. Provisional. Void Collective. Monitoring status active. Reality. Time manipulation. Restriction parameters implemented. You've limited my abilities, Issei realized, sensing new constraints around his perception. Provisional administrators receive graduated access, Observer explained. Unrestricted manipulation privileges require demonstration of responsibility and understanding. Ajuka approached, fascination overriding caution. You're saying there's an administrative system governing reality itself. With hierarchical access controls, your conceptualization is approximate but functionally adequate, Observer replied. Reality frameworks require maintenance and protection from catastrophic manipulation. The emergence of natural administrators occurs periodically through evolutionary processes. Rizvim's expression had transformed to one of calculated interest. I've sought information about the Omega protocols for millennia. The boy stumbles into them accidentally. He directed his attention to Issei. You have no conception of what you've accessed, Securite. Observer turned toward the imprisoned super devil. This entity possesses restricted knowledge through unauthorized means. Information source must be identified. Before anyone could respond, a thunderous impact shook the area. The sky darkened unnaturally, clouds forming perfect geometric patterns. A second entity emerged from a newly formed discontinuity, larger, more complex. Radiating mathematical structures that distorted perception itself. Observer unit. Report status. Compliance. Observer responded. Emergent administrator identified. Provisional status assigned. Containment of knowledge restricted entity implemented. The larger entity examined Issei, its attention feeling like immense pressure against his consciousness. Irregular pattern detected. Dimension. AL boundary integrity compromised in adjacent sectors. Advanced containment protocols authorized. Observer seemed to hesitate. Classification uncertain. Subject appears to be natural evolutionary emergence. Irrelevant. Sector security compromised. Implement containment. The entity extended multiple appendages simultaneously, each targeting a different individual present. Reality itself began warping around them. Mathematical constants shifting to create a prison of altered physics. Issei's interface flashed urgent notifications. Warning. Unauthorized containment protocol. Administrator privileges being suppressed. Emergency override available. Without hesitation, Issei activated the override. His perception expanded exponentially, temporarily breaking through the restrictions Observer had implemented. The fundamental structure of reality became clear again, and with it, the ability to modify core parameters. The attacking entity registered surprise, a mathematical discontinuity in its attack patterns. Administrator override detected. Impossible. Issei identified the entity's primary operational parameters and implemented a localized modification. Gravity inverted specifically around the entity, sending it hurtling upward at increasing velocity. Simultaneously, he reinforced the dimensional boundaries it had breached, sealing them with complex algorithmic structures. I don't think it was here to help, Issei said, maintaining focus on the mathematical constructs he'd created. Observer's symbolic body reconfigured in what appeared to be agitation. Enforcer units do not typically deploy without authorization from collective consensus. This is irregular. The enforcer entity halted its upward trajectory by altering its own gravitational interaction. Administrator capabilities confirmed. Escalation authorized. The air rippled as more discontinuities formed, dozens of smaller entities emerging in perfect geometric formation. We need to leave, Ajuka stated urgently. This conflict exceeds conventional supernatural parameters. Sirzex nodded. Prepare emergency evacuation. No time, Issei interrupted, seeing mathematical attack patterns forming. They're locking down dimensional travel. He turned to Observer. Are these really your people? Observer's symbolic patterns shifted in what appeared to be uncertainty. Protocol deviation detected. This enforcement pattern lacks authorized signatures. They're imposters, Rias asked. Or rogues, Issei suggested, interface displaying new information. Either way, we need to fight. The enforcer entities launched their attack, not with energy or magic, but with localized reality alterations. The air around the devils became solid. Gravity intensified tenfold in specific areas. Temporal flow accelerated, causing rapid aging of targeted matter. Issei countered by establishing a protective field, not a barrier of energy, but a localized enforcement of standard physical laws. Within this area, reality remained stable despite the entity's attempts to distort it. I can hold this protection, he told the others, but I can't maintain it and attack simultaneously with my current understanding. Sirzex nodded, power of destruction swirling around him. Then we'll handle offense. Can conventional attacks affect them? Observer integrated itself into Issei's protective field. Your energy attack. KS require translation to appropriate mathematical formats. I will provide conversion protocols. True to its word, Observer extended its influence through Issei's protection. The mathematical symbols comprising its form flowed outward, overlaying the devil's magical energies with complex patterns. Attack now, Issei instructed. Sirzex released his power of destruction, now laced with Observer's mathematical constructs. The devastating energy struck the nearest enforcer entity, disrupting its structural integrity. Instead of regenerating, the entity destabilized completely, collapsing into a shower of mathematical symbols that quickly dissipated. Effective, Observer noted. Continuing translation protocols. The devil forces rallied, their attacks newly effective against the mysterious entities. Rias and her peerage coordinated with practiced efficiency, each member's unique abilities enhanced by Observer's translations. Akano Himahima descended from above, holy lightning crackling between her fingers. Unlike her usual attacks, these lightning bolts contained precisely arranged mathematical patterns that targeted the entity's fundamental structure. Issei, she called, landing beside him within the protected zone. Her mismatched wings, one devil, one fallen angel, spread protectively. What's happening to you? He met her violet eyes, seeing concern transcribed as complex emotional algorithms. I'm accessing something called the Omega Authority. It lets me perceive and modify reality's fundamental structure. Akano studied him, her expression uncharacteristically serious. Your eyes are displaying mathematical symbols. And your aura. She extended her senses cautiously. It contains patterns similar to sacred mathematics from ancient shrine texts. Sacred mathematics. She nodded, deflecting an attack with precise lightning. In traditional Shinto mysticism, there are sacred numerical sequences said to underlie creation itself. My mother's shrine contained SC. Rolls describing them, texts supposedly dating back to creation. This caught observers' attention. Your civilization retained fragmented knowledge of baseline parameters. Unexpected. The battle intensified around them. Despite their enhanced attacks, the devils found themselves increasingly pressured as more enforcer entities emerged. Rizvam remained contained but watched with calculating interest, occasionally glancing between Issei and the enforcers with evident recognition. We can't maintain this indefinitely, Sirzex warned, his perfect form beginning to show signs of strain. Issei consulted his internal interface. Administrative access. Provisional. Emergency override active temporary. Warning. Override duration limited. Recommendation. Implement sector isolation protocol. I need to isolate this area from the rest of reality, Issei announced. It's the only way to prevent collateral damage and contain these entities. Ajuka approached, magical calculations swirling around him. A dimensional pocket. I can assist with stabilization formulae. More than a pocket dimension, Issei clarified. A temporary sequestration of this entire area from baseline reality. Complete isolation. Akino's expression showed understanding first. Like the barrier seals used for containing kami manifestations. A sacred boundary that separates divine phenomena from mortal reality. Exactly, Issei confirmed, impressed by her immediate comprehension. But implemented through mathematical principles rather than spiritual energy. Observer integrated additional symbols into Issei's protective field. Administrator assistance offered. Isolation protocol templates available. With observer's guidance, Issei began restructuring the mathematical principles surrounding their battlefield. The process wasn't creating energy or manipulating matter, it was redefining the area's relationship with surrounding reality. Gradually, the monastery ruins and surrounding terrain separated from normal space-time, existing in a self-contained bubble of customized physical laws. It's working, Rias observed as the sky above them changed color, shifting to a crystalline azure unlike Earth's natural atmosphere. The enforcer entities reacted immediately, redirecting their attacks toward the isolation boundary. Their mathematical assaults sought weaknesses in the newly formed parameters. They're trying to break through, Issei warned, maintaining concentration on the boundary equations. If they succeed, they'll have direct access to modify Earth's baseline reality. Akino stepped forward, drawing on her mixed heritage. Holy lightning in her right hand, demonic energy in her left. Then we defend the boundary while you complete the isolation. She took flight, joined by the other devils. Their coordinated attacks kept the entities occupied while Issei, Ajuka, and Observer worked to perfect the isolation protocol. Fascinating methodology, Ajuka commented, his brilliant mind adapting quickly to the mathematical principles involved. You're not creating a barrier, you're establishing localized reality independence. The distinction is crucial, Observer confirmed. Conventi, onal barriers remain connected to baseline parameters. This isolation exists as temporarily independent reality framework. As the isolation neared completion, the enforcer entities changed tactics. He converged into a unified structure, a massive geometric construct of impossible angles and shifting dimensions. This composite entity directed its full attention toward Issei, mathematical probes attacking his consciousness directly. Administrator protocols will be assimilated. Resistance irrelevant. Pain erupted through Issei's mind as the entity attempted to breach his mental interface. Warning notifications flashed rapidly. Critical warning. Unauthorized access attempt. Administrator identity verification required. Emergency lockdown initiated. Issei fell to his knees, blood streamy. Ing from his nose as he fought to maintain both the isolation boundary and his mental defenses. They're attacking him directly, Akino realized, diving toward Issei's position. She landed beside him, placing her hands on his temples. I can help. Drawing on ancient shrine practices, Akino began channeling purification energy through Issei's system. Her hands glowed with soft white light as she recited a traditional Shinto prayer. The mathematical symbols in Issei's eyes responded, reorganizing into more stable configurations. "How did you know to do that?" he gasped, feeling the attack's pressure diminish. "The symbols in your eyes," she explained, maintaining the purification flow. "They're responding to traditional spiritual mathematics. My mother taught me the fundamentals before." She didn't finish the sentence. But her meaning was clear. Observer analyzed the interaction with evident interest. Shrine Maiden protocols interfacing successfully with administrator systems. Historical connection confirmed. The composite entity intensified its attack, mathematical constructs becoming increasingly complex. Issei's defenses began faltering despite Akino's assistance. "I can't hold them much longer," he warned. Blood now streaming from his eyes as well. The mathematical symbols projected from them flickered erratically. Tiamat's arrival changed everything. The massive Chaos Ka RMA dragon materialized within the isolated zone, her sapphire scales radiating ancient power. Unlike the other devils, she appeared completely unperturbed by the mathematical nature of their adversaries. "Primitive enforcers," she stated dismissively, ancient eyes evaluating the composite entity. "Still using third-tier computational matrices. How disappointing." The composite entity redirected attention toward this new arrival. "Draconic entity classification. Tiamat. Threat assessment. Significant. Your assessment algorithms are outdated," Tiamat responded, her voice resonating with primordial authority. "My classification transcended. Significant. Eons before your protocols were implemented." She inhaled deeply, but instead of breathing fire, she exhaled a stream of perfect mathematique. Cal symbols that mirrored those comprising the entities. These symbols encircled the composite entity, establishing interference patterns that disrupted its cohesion. "You recognize these equations?" Issei asked, astonished by the Dragon King's apparent familiarity with the mathematical language. Tiamat's ancient eyes regarded him with newfound interest. "The language of creation is far older than these pretentious constructs would have you believe, young dragon. Some of us remember when these protocols were first established." With precise movements, Tiamat continued her mathematical assault, systematically dismantling the composite entity's structure. The enforcer fragments attempted reorganization, but Tiamat's knowledge appeared too precise, too fundamental for them to counter. "Assist me, administrator," she commanded Issei. "Your access permissions exceed mine despite your inexperience." Despite his pain and exhaustion, Issei focused on his interface. Cooperative protocol authorization requested. Entity. Tiamat. Historical access record verified. Authorized temporary collaboration. He confirmed the authorization. Immediately, his perception merged partially with Tiamat's ancient knowledge. Millennia of mathematical understanding flooded his consciousness, not overwhelming him, but guiding his newly acquired abilities toward specific configurations. Together, they implemented a complex mathematical sequence that targeted the composite entity's central coordination algorithms. The construct began destabilizing, its components separating as their unifying protocols failed. "Now, Shrine Maiden," Tiamat instructed Akino, "apply your purification to the isolation boundary." Understanding intuitively, Akino took flight, tracing the perimeter of their isolated reality. Her purification energy interacted with the mathematical boundary, reinforcing its separation from baseline reality while simultaneously preventing the fragmented entities from escaping. Observer Mon. ITORED these developments with evident surprise. Unexpected collaboration efficiency. Registered success probability. Exceptional. Within minutes, the enforcer entities had been completely neutralized, their mathematical components dissipating within the isolated zone. Issei, guided by Tiamat's knowledge and supported by Akino's spiritual techniques, reconfigured the isolation boundary to begin controlled reintegration with normal reality. As the boundary dissolved, Ajuka approached with unconcealed scientific fascination. "Dragon King Tiamat, your familiarity with these mathematical principles suggests historical knowledge significantly exceeding current records." Tiamat regarded the Satan scientist with ancient amusement. "The histories available to Demonkind are incomplete by design, Beelzebub. Some knowledge was intentionally obscured for reality's protection." Her attention returned to Issei, who was being supported by Akino as the strain of his exertions became apparent. "This young dragon has accidentally accessed administrative systems dormant since the Great War. His discovery will not go unnoticed." by forces far more significant than these rudimentary enforcers. What forces? Sirzex asked, joining the conversation. The Void Collective represents merely one faction interested in reality's fundamental structure, Tiamat explained. There are others, some who would preserve current parameters, others who would rewrite existence to their specifications. Observer's symbolic body reconfigured into a more compact form. Unauthorized enforcement units contained. Report submission required. This observer unit must return to collective. Before you go, Issei said, his voice strained but determined. Was Rizvam connected to those enforcers? They seemed to recognize him. Observer analyzed the contained super devil briefly. Connection probability. Elevated. Specific determination requires higher authentication. How convenient, Rizvam commented dryly from within his containment field. The cosmic bureaucrat neither confirms nor denies. Typical administrative procedure across all reality levels, it seems. Observer disregarded the comment, turning back to Issei. Provisional administrator status confirmed. Monitoring will continue. Full access requires demonstrated responsibility. With that statement, Observer's form collapsed into a perfect mathematical point, which then disappeared from conventional spacetime. Exhaustion finally overcame Issei. The mathematical symbols faded from his eyes as he collapsed against Akeno, consciousness receding. Before darkness claimed him completely, Tiamat's ancient voice reached his mind directly. Rest, young administrator. Your journey has only begun. I will find you when you awaken. There is much you must understand about the power you've accessed. The last thing Issei perceived was Akeno's concerned face above him, her violet eyes reflecting the fading mathematical symbols of his own. Then darkness claimed him, his consciousness retreating from the overwhelming complexity of his newly perceived reality. Issei awakened in unfamiliar surroundings, a traditional Japanese room with rice paper walls and tatami flooring. Golden afternoon sunlight filtered through wooden lattice windows, casting geometric shadows across the space. The air smelled of sandalwood incense and medicinal herbs. The young administrator rejoins conscious reality, Tiamat's voice observed. Issei turned to find the Dragon King seated beside his futon, her human form maintaining the regal beauty and ancient power of her draconic nature. Sapphire hair cascaded over traditional Japanese robes adorned with mathematical patterns similar to those Issei had perceived during the battle. Where am I? He asked, noticing at his perception had returned to relatively normal parameters. The world no longer appeared as modifiable mathematics, though a subtle awareness of underlying patterns remained. Kyoto, Tiamat replied, specifically, a sanctuary maintained by shrine maiden lineages since time immemorial. The mathematical principles here help stabilize your newly awakened perception. Akeno entered, carrying a tray with tea and medicine. Unlike her usual school uniform or shrine maiden attire, she wore formal shrine robes marked with similar mathematical patterns to Tiamat's garments. Your consciousness has been fluctuating between normal perception and administrator awareness, she explained, kneeling gracefully beside the futon. These surroundings help maintain equilibrium while your mind adjusts. Issei accepted the tea, noting how the steam rose in patterns that briefly revealed their mathematical underpinnings before returning to normal appearance. The Omega Authority. It's still active, isn't it? Indeed, Tiamat confirmed. Once awakened, such perception cannot be fully rescinded. You will learn to control its manifestation with time and training. Which is why you're here, Issei deduced. You recognized those entities and their mathematics. You've encountered this before. Tiamat's ancient eyes studied him with increased respect. Perceptive observation. Yes, long before human civilization arose. Similar administrative systems manifested occasionally among elder dragons. Most went mad from the perception, unable to reconcile conventional reality with its underlying structure. But you didn't. A smile curved Tiamat's lips, revealing momentarily sharpened canines. I adapted. As must you. Akeno arranged medicine beside Issei's futon, her movements precise and ritualized. Quote, the shrine maidens who maintained these mathematical traditions never fully understood their purpose. We preserved the patterns through generations, believing them sacred geometries honoring creation itself. Your preservation proved fortunate, Tiamat noted. The patterns help stabilize administrator perception when properly applied. Your instinctive application during battle may have prevented catastrophic perceptual fracturing. Issei attempted to sit up fully, wincing as residual pain coursed through his body. What exactly happened to me? How did I access this Omega authority? Tiamat and Akino exchanged glances before the Dragon King answered. The simplest explanation. Reality requires administration. Natural evolutionary processes occasionally produce beings capable of perceiving and potentially modifying baseline parameters. But why me? Issei pressed. And why now? Proximity to death often triggers dormant capabilities, Tiamat explained. As for why you specifically, our unique circumstances created ideal conditions. The Red Dragon Emperor's power, combined with your reincarnated devil nature, your exposure to multiple mythological frameworks, and perhaps most importantly, your adaptability to power assimilation. Akino added, the sacred texts describe the emergence of reality scribes during periods of significant supernatural convergence. The peace conference between factions. The appearance of increasingly powerful sacred gear users, these suggest such a convergence is occurring. Issei absorbed this information, trying to reconcile his ordinary life as a high school student with the cosmic significance of what he'd apparently accessed. And Rizvam, observers suggested he had restricted knowledge about all this. Lucifer's son has long sought power beyond conventional supernatural understanding, Tiamat stated, ancient contempt evident in her tone. Legends speak of his obsession with primordial archives containing creation blueprints. It seems he found fragmentary information about administrative systems but lacked the evolutionary capacity to access them directly. A slight commotion outside the room interrupted their conversation. The door slid open to reveal Yasaka, leader of Kyoto's yokai faction. The nine-tailed fox entered with regal composure, traditional kimono rustling softly with each measured step. Our guest awakens, she observed, golden eyes assessing Issei with careful consideration. How fortunate. The boundary disturbances have intensified. Tiamat straightened, instantly alert. Where? Multiple locations across Kyoto's ley network, Yasaka reported. Mathematical anomalies unlike anything our sensors have recorded previously. My technicians describe them as reality punctures, rather than dimensional portals. Issei's partially restored interface flickered to life. Warning. Unauthorized baseline modification attempts detected. Proximity alert. Multiple intrusion vectors. Administrator response recommended. He struggled to rise. They're trying again. Whatever those entities were. Not precisely the same signatures, Yasaka clarified, producing a scroll covered in complex diagrams. These intrusion attempts lack the organizational structure of your previous adversaries. More chaotic, less coordinated. Akino helped Issei to his feet, supporting him as his strength gradually returned. You're not fully recovered. Your administrative abilities remain unstable. Instability may prove advantageous, Tiamat countered. Conventional patterns are more easily detected and countered by opposing forces. The young administrator's unpredictable implementation could bypass established countermeasures. Yasaka approached, extending the scroll for Issei's inspection. Our yokai mathematicians have mapped the intrusion attempts. Perhaps your perception can identify patterns we cannot. As Issei examined the scroll, his vision shifted, conventional ink markings transforming into dynamic mathematical formulae. The intrusion points appeared as algorithm clusters attempting to modify local reality parameters. They're probing, he realized. Testing different modification methodologies against baseline resistance. These aren't attacks, they're experiments. Tiamat nodded grimly. As I suspected, the enforcer entities were merely first responders. Now more sophisticated analytical processes have been deployed. To what end? Akino asked. To understand how I accessed administrator privileges, Issei answered, the patterns becoming clearer as he studied them. And whether those privileges can be transferred or duplicated. Outside, thunder rumbled despite clear skies. Geometric patterns briefly appeared in the air before dissolving back into normal atmosphere. Reality itself seemed to shiver, adjusting to accommodate conflicting mathematical directives. We must respond quickly, Yasaka stated, Ninetails fanning behind her in agitation. These disturbances are affecting yokai territories severely. Some younger spirits are experiencing existential instability. Issei straightened fully, determination overcoming physical discomfort. I can counter these probes, but I'll need help understanding the mathematical framework specific to Kyoto. Its spiritual geography is unfamiliar to me. Yasaka's expression softened slightly. Then you shall have Kyoto's full cooperation, young administrator. Our archives contain mathematical mappings dating back to the region's formation. And I shall provide draconic perspective on administrative principles, Tiamat added, azure eyes gleaming with ancient knowledge. Together, we may yet prevent catastrophic reality destabilization. Akano completed their impromptu alliance. The Shrine Maiden traditions will support your perception stability. Our purification techniques appear compatible with administrative mathematics. For the first time since awakening the Omega Authority, Issei felt something beyond confusion and fear, possibility. Whatever cosmic responsibility had accidentally fallen to him, he wasn't facing it alone. Then let's begin, he said, mathematical symbols flickering briefly in his eyes. I have a feeling we don't have much time before the experiments become actual invasions. As if confirming his assessment, the sky outside darkened unnaturally, perfect geometric patterns forming among the clouds. Realities. Baseline parameters were being challenged, and Issei, still barely understanding his newfound perception, would need to defend them. Chapter 2. Paradigm Shift. 7 precise incisions in the fabric of L. Ocal spacetime formed a perfect heptagram. Lavinia Rennie, her platinum hair gathered in a functional braid, adjusted the final crystalline anchor with gloved hands. Frost formed where her fingers touched. The dimensional apparatus, a side effect of the ice magic that had made her infamous among human sorcerers. Measurement array established, she announced, her voice carrying the clipped precision of academic discourse. Quantum magical interface operational at 83% efficiency. Not optimal, but sufficient for preliminary testing. Issei observed from the center of the array, mathematical patterns flowing across his vision intermittently as his perception shifted between conventional reality and its underlying structure. 3 weeks of intensive training had given him rudimentary control over the Omega Authority's manifestation, though maintaining stability remained challenging. 83% seems rather precise, he noted with a half-smile. Lavinia adjusted her wire-rimmed glasses, ice-blue eyes evaluating his expression for signs of mockery. Finding none, she relaxed marginally. When measuring intersections between quantum states and taumaturgical frameworks, precision prevents catastrophic feedback loops. A brief hesitation. That was humor, wasn't it? I'm still calibrating appropriate responses to non-academic discourse. The underground facility MMED with arcane machinery, a hybrid of magical constructs and cutting-edge technology provided by Ajuka Beelzebub. Located beneath Kyoto's western mountains, this research complex had been established specifically to study Issei's evolving abilities under controlled conditions. Ready to proceed with Trial 17, Lavinia continued, consulting holographic data projections. Previous trials established baseline manipulation parameters for non-living matter. Today's objective: selective reality modification affecting targeted biological systems while preserving surrounding environment. From an observation chamber above, Yasaka watched with evident concern. The nine-tailed fox leader had provided the facility's location but remained cautious about the experiment's potential impact on Kyoto's metaphysical stability. Your biometric indicators show elevated stress, Lavinia noted, examining another holographic display. Anxiety compromises fine control. Would you prefer to postpone? Issei shook his head. The intrusion attempts are increasing. Every day I delay mastering these abilities means another vulnerability for them to exploit. Them remained inadequately defined despite weeks of research. The enforcer entities hadn't reappeared after the initial confrontation, but reality fluctuations continued across Japan, particularly concentrated around supernatural territories. Very well. Lavinia activated additional monitoring systems. Target organisms prepared. Begin when ready. 3 sealed containers materialized on pedestals surrounding Issei. Each contained an identical flowering plant, genetically engineered specimens developed specifically for these experiments. The containers were constructed of specialized materials designed to isolate their contents from external reality modifications. Issei closed his eyes, allowing his perception to shift fully into administrative mode. The world dissolved into its mathematical underpinnings, energy flows, probabilistic matter states. Quantum entanglement patterns all revealing themselves as interwoven algorithms. Administrator interface active. Local parameter modification mode. Engaged. Target selection. Container 1, flora specimen. He focused on the first plant, identifying its biological parameters within the underlying code. With careful precision, he isolated the algorithms governing chlorophyll production and modified a single variable, changing the light absorption spectrum from standard green wavelengths to blue. First modification implemented, he reported, maintaining concentration. Lav. Inia activated a release mechanism on the first container. The shield dropped, exposing the plant to Issei's alteration. Before their eyes, the plant's vivid green leaves transformed to a deep azure hue. The transition spreading systematically from roots to stem to leaves. Remarkable, Lavinia murmured, instruments recording frantically. Chlorophyll structure fundamentally altered at the quantum level, yet all other biological functions remain unchanged. Perfect selectivity. Encouraged, Issei moved to the second specimen. This time, he targeted growth parameters, modifying the mathematical constants governing cellular replication rates. The modification was more complex, requiring simultaneous adjustments to multiple interconnected variables. When the second container opened, the plant began growing visibly, not in the chaotic manner of accelerated time, but with perfect, controlled development. Within minutes, it had tripled in size while maintaining ideal proportional harmony. Controlled dimensional scaling without compromised structural integrity, Lavinia noted, professional demeanor slipping momentarily as excitement crept into her voice. Previous taumaturgical methods inevitably introduce instabilities during accelerated growth. Your modifications show zero entropy increase. The third test presented the greatest challenge. Rather than modifying existing parameters, Issei would attempt to introduce entirely new biological functionality, a characteristic absent from the plant's genetic coding. He delved deeper into the mathematical framework, identifying the foundational algorithms governing biological possibilities within their reality framework. With extreme caution, he inserted new variables, permission structures allowing for bioluminescence in a species that had never possessed such capability. When the final container opened, nothing happened immediately. The plant remained unchanged, disappointing after the previous successes. Perhaps biological innovation requires, Lavinia began, then stopped abruptly as the flowering buds began to glow with soft blue light, pulsing gently like heartbeats. You didn't just accelerate evolution, she whispered. Abandoning scientific detachment momentarily, you rewrote biological possibility itself. The observation chamber door slid open as Yusaka entered the testing area, golden eyes fixed on the glowing plant. Her 9 tails swayed in perfect synchronization, reflecting agitation despite her composed expression. The metaphysical sensors throughout Kyoto detected your final modification, she stated. Formal Japanese carrying subtle undertones of concern. It registered as a localized reality amendment rather than conventional magic. Issei released his administrative perspective, returning to normal perception. Is that problematic? Yusaka approached the glowing plant, careful not to touch it. Conventional magic operates within established parameters. What you've done alters the parameters themselves. Her gaze met his directly. Every yokai in Kyoto with sensitivity to natural law felt the change. Some of the older spirits are unsettled. Fascinating implication, Lavinia interjected, already documenting the phenomenon. Reality modifications radiate metaphysical signatures detectable by spiritually attuned beings. This suggests administrative changes affect multiple perceptual frameworks simultaneously, not merely physical constants. A shadow passed briefly across Yusaka's elegant features. The Tengu elders are requesting an audience. They've been experiencing prophetic visions since your arrival in Kyoto, fragmentary glimpses of mathematical patterns reshaping existence. I should speak with them, Issei decided. The weight of responsibility had grown heavier with each successful experiment. His abilities affected more than just physical reality, they rippled through the spiritual ecosystem that supernatural beings inhabited. Lavinia frowned at her monitoring equipment. Our testing schedule requires at least 7 more trials today to establish consistent parameters for. Science must occasionally yield to diplomacy, Yusaka interrupted, gentle but firm. Cooperation of Kyoto's yokai factions remains essential to these experiments. Before Lavinia could protest further, an alarm sounded throughout the facility. Red emergency lighting bathed the sham. As security protocols engaged automatically. Dimensional intrusion detected, announced an automated system. Unknown entities attempting reality interface at multiple points across the facility perimeter. Issei's administrative perception activated instinctively in response to the threat. The facility's boundaries appeared as complex mathematical meshwork, currently under assault from Albury. THMIC probes attempting to rewrite local physics. They found us, he realized. They tracked my reality modifications. Yasaka's 9 tails fanned out defensively, golden energy flowing between them. My barrier specialists are responding. But these intrusion methods bypass conventional protections. Lavinia's demeanor shifted instantly from scientific curiosity to focused combat readiness. Issei. Crystals formed around her hands as she accessed specialized defensive spells. Containment protocols initiating. All research data transferring to secure servers. The facility trembled as reality itself strained against conflicting mathematical directives. From the walls, floor, and ceiling, geometrically perfect circular portals began materializing, each revealing glimpses of a dimension governed by alternative physical laws. Unlike the enforcer entities from their previous encounter, the forms emerging through these portals appeared almost human, though constructed from shifting mathematical symbols rather than conventional matter. They moved with fluid precision, scanning the environment with sensory appendages that existed simultaneously in multiple positions. Analysis units, Issei identified. Recognizing their mathematical signature. They're here to study, not attack. Their observation still constitutes intrusion, Yasaka countered, golden energy coalescing into fox fire between her palms. Kyoto's metaphysical integrity must be protected. The analysis units took humanoid form, their bodies composed of constantly shifting equations. They oriented toward Issei immediately, mathematical patterns intensifying as they registered his presence. Anomalous administrator located. Primary directive. Evaluate operational parameters. Secondary directive. Determine replication potential. Their communication manifested as mathematical principles rather than sound, directly comprehensible to Issei's enhanced perception but meaningless to his companions. They want to understand how I access administrative functions, he translated, and whether the ability can be replicated. Lavinia's expression hardened. Human history demonstrates the danger of advanced technology falling into unprepared hands. Administrative access to reality itself would be catastrophic in the wrong possession. Agreed, Yasaka said, foxfire expanding to form a protective barrier around their position. These entities must not leave with such knowledge. The analysis units began systematic evaluation of the experimental area, paying particular attention to the modified plants. Their mathematical appendages extended toward the specimens, extracting informational patterns rather than physical samples. Localized parameter modifications detected. Implementation methodology. Non-standard. Authorization source. Unidentified. Issei stepped forward, accessing his administrative interface. Administrator identity. Issei Hyodo. Status. Authorized access. Query. Identify your collective and purpose. The analysis units paused, mathematical patterns reorganizing as they processed this direct communication. After a moment, one unit advanced, its symbolic structure becoming more complex. Identity. Evaluation Cluster 7. Origin. Axiom Directive. Purpose. Assessment of anomalous administrative manifestation. They're not from the Void Collective, Issei realized. They represent something called the Axiom Directive. Lavinia maintained her combat stance, ice magic swirling around her fingers. Asked their intentions. Scientific curiosity or hostile acquisition. Before Issei could relay the question, the ground beneath them shuddered violently. The entire facility tilted as gravitational constants shifted unpredictably. Equipment crashed to the floor while support structures groaned under impossible stress. They're not just studying, Yasaka warned, struggling to maintain balance as gravity fluctuated. They're actively modifying local reality parameters. The lead analysis unit continued its communication. Administrator capability confirmation required. Graduated challenge protocol initiated. Resist or perish. The abstract threat became immediately concrete as air molecules around them began changing state, oxygen transforming into inert gases through fundamental atomic reconfiguration. Issei reacted instinctively, countermanding the modification with his own administrative authority. The air shimmered as competing mathematical directives fought for implementation priority. For several tense seconds, breathing became difficult as atmospheric composition fluctuated between viable and toxic. "They're testing your response capabilities," Lavinia observed, creating an ice barrier that temporarily isolated their immediate vicinity from the atmospheric changes. "Gauging your reaction speed and implementation efficiency." Yusaka's tails whipped forward in perfect coordination, golden energy lashing out at the nearest analysis units. The fox fire passed through their mathematical forms without apparent effect, their symbolic structures simply rearranging to accommodate the energy. "Conventional attacks ineffective," she reported, adapting her strategy immediately. Attempting yokai pattern disruption, her second attack targeted not the entities themselves, but the mathematical patterns comprising their forms. Ancient yokai symbols interwove with her fox fire, creating interference patterns that disrupted the entity's coherence. 2 analysis units destabilized temporarily, their symbolic structures becoming chaotic before self-correcting. "Temporary effect only," Yusaka noted. Disappointment evident. Their adaptive algorithms compensate quickly. The challenge escalated as the analysis units implemented more aggressive reality modifications. The facility's walls began phasing between solid matter and probabilistic wave states. Quantum uncertainty expanded from subatomic scales to macroscopic levels, causing physical objects to exist in multiple potential states simultaneously. Issei countered each modification, his administrative authority enforcing standard reality parameters within their immediate vicinity. The conflict manifested as waves of alternating stability and chaos washing through the research facility. "We need to evacuate," he decided, recognizing they were fighting a losing battle. "They're increasing complexity. Why faster than I can counter with my current understanding?" Lavinia nodded curtly. "Emergency teleportation system ready, but conventional dimensional transit may be compromised by these reality fluctuations. I'll stabilize a corridor," Issei promised, focusing his administrative perception on the path to the teleportation chamber. As they moved through the destabilizing facility, reality itself seemed to fragment around them. Corridors stretched to impossible lengths before snapping back to normal dimensions. Temporal flow fluctuated, causing asynchronous movement where one person experienced seconds while another experienced minutes in the same subjective timeframe. They reached the teleportation chamber to find it partially transformed, half the equipment existing as conventional technology. The other half converted to abstract mathematical constructs performing equivalent functions. "Can you restore it?" Yusaka asked, maintaining a protective barrier against the analysis units following their retreat. Issei assessed the modified equipment through his administrative perception. "Not quickly enough. They're implementing changes too rapidly. Alternative exit strategy required," Lavinia stated. Frost spreading from her feet as her tension manifested physically. "Conventional dimensional transit compromised. Administrative transit necessary." "Administrative transit?" Issei questioned. "Theoretical concept," she explained rapidly. "If reality operates on modifiable mathematical principles, and you possess administrative access to those principles, you should theoretically be able to implement localized translocation by temporarily connecting to spatial coordinates directly." "You mean teleportation without the machinery?" "Precisely. Not through conventional space, but through administrative backchannel access." The analysis units breached Yusaka's barrier, mathematical constructs disassembling her fox fire patterns systematically. Their forms had evolved during the confrontation, becoming more complex and exhibiting capabilities beyond their initial parameters. Assessment progressing. Subject demonstrates rudimentary administrative control. Escalation to Phase 2 authorized. The lead unit expanded its mathematical structure dramatically, incorporating elements from the surrounding environment into its form. Equipment, furniture, even sections of the facility walls dissolved into mathematical components that enhanced the entity's complexity. Decision time abbreviated, Lavinia warned as the enhanced entity began implementing higher-order reality modifications. The chamber's temperature plummeted toward absolute zero while simultaneously, paradoxically, molecular excitation increased, creating the physically impossible condition of matter that was both supercooled and superheated. Issei accessed his administrative interface fully, pushing his understanding beyond previously established limits. If Lavinia's theory proved correct, he could eat a direct spatial connection without conventional dimensional transit. Administrator function. Spatial coordinate correlation. Destination parameters. Kyoto Shrine Complex. Transit method. Direct administrative override. Reality resisted the unprecedented modification. Warning notifications flashed through his awareness. Warning. Unauthorized transit protocol. Proper administrative channels bypassed. Potential spacetime integrity compromise. Ignoring the warnings, Issei forced implementation through sheer determination. The air before them shimmered, then parted, revealing not a conventional portal but a direct spatial adjacency. The research facility and Kyoto Shrine simply became connected points without intervening space. Unprecedented methodology, Lavinia whispered, scientific. I see curiosity momentarily overriding survival instinct. Theoretical analysis later, Yusaka urged, already moving toward the spatial connection. Immediate evacuation now. They passed through the connection one by one. The transition feeling nothing like conventional teleportation. Rather than moving through space, they simply experienced being in the facility one moment and the shrine the next, with no sensation of transit whatsoever. As the last of them crossed, Issei terminated the spatial correlation. The connection collapsed with unexpected force, releasing a shockwave of mathematical configuration that rippled outward through Kyoto's metaphysical landscape. Shrine bells throughout the city rang simultaneously without being touched, resonating with the mathematical disturbance. Spirit wards flared with ancient power, responding to fundamental changes in local reality parameters. What have you done? Demanded an elderly voice. They turned to find themselves facing three ancient Tengu, their avian features accentuated by expressions of profound concern. The eldest, bearing a staff carved with mathematical symbols similar to those Issei perceived in reality's structure, stepped forward. You have created a precedent, the Tengu elder continued, beaked face solemn. Administrative transit without proper authorization. The ripples will draw attention from forces beyond your current understanding. We had no choice, Issei responded, still adjusting to the aftermath of his unprecedented reality manipulation. Entities from something called the Axiom Directive were. The Axiom Directive. The Tengu elder's feathers ruffled in evident distress. So it begins again, as the cyclic prophecies foretold. Yusaka bowed respectfully to the Tengu elders. Honored ones, your visions spoke of this moment. The eldest Tengu nodded gravely. Fragments only, as reality permits. The emergence of an unauthorized administrator. The attention of opposing cosmic directives. The fracturing of established parameters. His ancient eyes fixed on Issei. And at the center, a dragon who sees the world's true nature. Lavinia had already produced multiple crystalline devices, recording. The mathematical aftershocks still propagating through the shrine complex. Tengu divination has traditionally been dismissed as cryptic symbolism by the scientific community, she noted. Yet your prophecies appear to directly reference administrative-level reality functions. Fascinating correlation. The second Tengu, smaller but radiating intense spiritual energy, approached Issei with piercing scrutiny. You accessed the administrative backdoor without proper authentication. Such methods have not been employed since the conceptual wars that preceded humanity's emergence. Conceptual wars, Issei questioned. Before physical reality stabilized into its current configuration, the third Tengu explained, existence consisted primarily of competing conceptual frameworks. Abstract entities battled for definitional dominance, their conflicts determining which concepts would become fundamental to reality and which would be relegated to theoretical possibility. The first elder tapped his staff against the shrine floor, each impact releasing concentric rings of mathematical symbols. The Void Collective, the Axiom Directive, the Pattern Conclave, all remnants of conceptual entities that survived the transition to physical reality by embedding themselves as administrative frameworks. Your activation of administrative access has reawakened ancient rivalries, the second elder continued. Each collective seeks different evolutionary outcomes for reality itself. Before Issei could request clarification, the shrine's warning systems activated. Throughout Kyoto, spiritual sensors detected massive metaphysical disturbances, multiple reality fractures forming, Yusaka reported, consulting a holographic display formed from Foxfire. Pattern matches neither Void Collective nor Axiom Directive signatures. The Tengu elders exchanged significant glances. The pattern conclave responds, the first elder intoned. The triangle completes itself. The sky above Kyoto darkened unnaturally. Clouds forming perfect geometric patterns too precise for natural formation. Unlike previous incursions, which manifested as localized breaches, this disturbance affected the entire city simultaneously, reality itself seeming to thin as another dimensional framework pressed against conventional existence. They're not creating portals, Issei realized, his administrative perception revealing the true nature of the phenomenon. They're implementing a gradual reality overlay. Lavinia's instruments confirmed his assessment. Dimensional merger rather than transit. They're attempting to synchronize their reality framework with ours, creating a hybrid dimensional state where both sets of physical laws operate simultaneously. The air shimmered as the merger progressed. Ordinary citizens of Kyoto continued their activities, completely unaware of the metaphysical transformation occurring around them. Only those with supernatural perception could detect the changes. Ordinary matter guy. Ning additional properties as alternative physical laws began taking effect. The pattern conclave seeks harmonious integration rather than conquest, the eldest Tengu explained. Their methodology reflects their philosophical approach to reality governance. From the merging dimensional frameworks, entities began to materialize, not by entering through portals, but by gradually increasing their existence probability within conventional reality. Unlike the mathematical constructs of previous encounters, these beings appeared as intricate crystalline structures of impossible complexity, each fact containing recursive patterns that repeated at every scale. One such entity, larger and more elaborate than the others, approached their position at the shrine. Its movement seemed impossible, not traversing the intervening space but rather increasing its probability of existing at progressively closer locations until it manifested directly before them. Representatives of divergent administrative frameworks. The crystalline entity stated, its voice manifesting not as sound but as directly understood meaning. The pattern conclave acknowledges your presence and invites constructive dialogue regarding jurisdictional harmonization. Quote, Yusaka stepped forward as Kyoto's sovereign representative. Your method of arrival constitutes territorial incursion without prior diplomatic arrangement. Yokai faction requests immediate restoration of standard reality parameters within our domain. The crystalline entity rotated several facets, apparently its method of considering the request. Temporary accommodations can be implemented while negotiations proceed. Standardization of exclusive parameters unnecessarily constrains evolutionary potential. With subtle movements of its crystalline appendages, the entity adjusted the reality merger process. The oppressive sense of dimensional overlap receded partially, though elements of the alternative physical framework remained present. Your cooperation is appreciated, Yusaka acknowledged formally, though her tense posture indicated continued wariness. The crystalline representative turned its attention to Issei. Anomalous administrator manifestation detected. Pattern conclave protocols require assessment and classification. I'm getting tired of being assessed by cosmic entities, Issei replied with newfound confidence. Weeks of experimentation had increased his understanding of his abilities substantially. State your actual purpose. The crystalline entity's facets rearranged into new configurations. Direct communication acknowledged. Pattern conclave purpose. Reality framework optimization through gradual parameter integration. Current objective. Evaluate unauthorized administrator access for potential integration into harmonized directive structure. Lavinia translated the abstract explanation. They want to recruit you into their organizational hierarchy. As do the others, undoubtedly, the eldest Tengu noted. An administrator emerging outside established power structures represents both opportunity and threat to these ancient directives. The crystalline entity continued. Pattern conclave offers or administrative framework. Consensus-based implementation, graduated authority distribution, evolutionary optimization priority. Before Issei could respond, reality trembled again as competing mathematical signatures manifested throughout Kyoto. The Void Collective and Axiom Directive had arrived, apparently unwilling to allow the Pattern Conclave exclusive access to the emerging administrator. The Shrine grounds became an impossible intersection of three distinct reality frameworks, each attempting to establish precedence. Gravity fluctuated between different values. Light propagated a core Ding to three competing sets of physical laws. Temporal flow became inconsistent, moments stretching or compressing unpredictably. Three-faction convergence destabilizes local reality integrity, the crystalline entity warned. Its own structure becoming partially incoherent as competing mathematical principles affected its manifestation. Catastrophic parameter collision imminent without administrative arbitration. Issei understood the implications immediately. Without intervention, Kyoto would become ground zero for a catastrophic reality conflict, three fundamentally incompatible frameworks attempting to occupy the same spacetime coordinates. Can you stop them? Yasaka asked him, genuine fear visible beneath her composed exterior. Kyoto's metaphysical structure cannot withstand this level of fundamental conflict. The Tengu elders had begun an ancient ritual, staff striking the ground in precise rhythm as they chanted mathematical formulas that briefly stabilized local reality parameters. But their influence extended only to the shrine grounds. The rest of Kyoto remained caught between competing cosmic frameworks. Issei accessed his administrative interface fully, perceiving the true complexity of the situation. The three frameworks were not merely in conflict, they were mutually annihilating where they intersected, creating expanding zones of fundamental uncertainty where baseline reality itself began unraveling. Lavinia's scientific instruments overloaded and shattered as they attempted to measure the impossible intersections. Reality cohesion dropping below sustainable thresholds, she reported. Frost spreading unconsciously from her body as stress compromised her magical control. Theoretical models suggest total parameter collapse within 17 minutes. I need to establish priority. Issei realized. Force a single framework to predominate until proper separation can be implemented. The crystalline entity's facets rotated rapidly, apparently processing this statement. Administrator prioritization acknowledged. Pattern conclave submits to temporary hierarchical organization under emergency protocols. Representatives from the other directives mate. Realized. An observer unit from the Void Collective and an analysis unit from the Axiom Directive, both struggling to maintain cohesion in the chaotic reality intersection. Critical reality destabilization detected. Temporary cooperation protocols authorized. Void Collective accepts transitional administrator authority. The analysis unit concurred, its mathematical structure simplifying to achieve greater stability. Axiom Directive acknowledges existential threat. Provisional administrator coordination accepted. Structural hierarchy temporarily acknowledged. With all three entities accepting his coordination, Issei implemented an unprecedented administrative function, creating a neutral framework buffer between the competing reality systems. Rather than allowing direct collision, he established transitional zones where parameters gradually shifted from one system to another. The strain on his consciousness proved immense. Manipulating reality at such a fundamental level required processing power beyond human mental capacity. Warning notifications flashed through his awareness. Warning. Cognitive processing insufficient. Potential consciousness fragmentation risk. Administrative assistant recommended. I can't maintain this alone, he warned, blood beginning to trickle from his nose as mental strain manifested physically. Tiamat's arrival changed the equation. The Chaos Karma Dragon materialized in human form. Ancient eyes immediately assessing the situation. Conceptual entities fighting over territory again. Some cosmic behaviors never evolve, regardless of eons past. Without hesitation, she placed her hand against Issei's forehead, establishing direct draconic consciousness interface. I'll stabilize your perception pathways. Dragons existed before these Innistrative frameworks solidified. We understand reality's fluidity better than most. Her assistance created an immediate improvement. The computational burden distributed, allowing Issei to focus on implementing the buffer zones with greater precision. Kyoto's metaphysical landscape gradually stabilized, the three competing frameworks settling into uneasy coexistence rather than mutual annihilation. Temporary solution only, Tiamat warned. Administrative buffers require constant maintenance without formal protocol implementation. The crystalline entity from the pattern conclave approached once more. Its structure fully coherent now that reality parameters had stabilized. Pattern conclave proposes formal conciliation protocol. Administrative council formation with representative entities from all directives. Void Collective acknowledges proposal. Neutral administrative oversight acceptable. Axiom Directive calculates favorable outcome probability. Structured negotiation preferable to parameter warfare. Issei considered their unexpected cooperation. You want to form some kind of cosmic committee. With me as, what? Mediator. More accurately, nexus point, Tiamat clarified. These directives cannot directly interface without your administrative access providing translation protocols. They evolved from incompatible conceptual frameworks. The Tengu elders had ceased air stabilization ritual now that immediate danger had passed. The eldest approached with newfound respect in his ancient eyes. The prophecies spoke of a harmonic convergence, three becoming one through Dragon's will. We misunderstood the nature of that harmony. Not unification but mediation, the second elder agreed. Not conquering but connecting. Yusaka surveyed her domain with evident really. EF is reality stabilized throughout Kyoto. Whatever role you've assumed appears critical to preventing conceptual warfare from destroying conventional existence. The yokai faction offers full support for this. Administrative Council, Lavinia, ever practical, had already begun documenting the unprecedented metaphysical arrangements. Constitutional framework required, operating procedures, voting mechanisms, dispute resolution protocols. Her eyes gleamed with intellectual excitement behind wire-rimmed glasses. We're essentially drafting cosmic governance documentation. The three directive representatives positioned themselves equidistant from each other, forming a perfect triangle with Issei at the center. Energy patterns connected them, creating a mathematical interface unlike anything previously documented in supernatural history. The abstract council forms, the crystalline entity declared. First convergence since the conceptual wars. Reality frameworks enter formal consultation phase. Observer from the Void Collective added. Primary objective, baseline stability maintenance. The Axiom Analysis Unit concluded. Administrative protocols standardization initiated. As the mathematical connections solidified, Issei gained unprecedented insight into the three directives' true nature. They weren't merely organizations or entities, they were fundamental aspects of reality itself that had gained consciousness during creation's earliest phases. The Void Collective embodied structural integrity, the mathematical consistency that prevented reality from collapsing into chaos. The Axiom Directive represented evolutionary progression, the mechanisms through which reality adapted and developed new properties. The Pattern Conclave maintained harmonic integration, ensuring RSE elements could coexist within unified systems. Together, they formed a trinity of cosmic functions that had operated independently since the universe's formation. Now, through Issei's emergence as an independent administrator, they had established their first formal communication channel in billions of years. I'm just a high school student, Issei protested, the cosmic implications overwhelming his sense of identity. I was worried about entrance exams a month ago, not mediating between fundamental aspects of existence. Tiamat's ancient eyes held surprising compassion. Reality seldom NSULTS those it chooses for vital functions. The mathematical patterns comprising existence recognized something in your unique configuration, adaptation capacity beyond conventional limitations. But why now? He pressed. Why me? The crystalline entity rotated thoughtfully. Convergence phase initiated by multiple factors. Supernatural boundary dissolution, sacred gear evolutionary anomalies, dimensional transit proliferation. Administrator emergence necessary for system stability during transition phase. Concurrent assessment. Accurate observer confirmed. Probability modeling indicates. Deliberate catalyst involvement, the analysis unit added unexpectedly. This caught everyone's attention. Catalyst involvement. Yusaka questioned. You suggest some entity deliberately triggered these events. Rizvam Levon Lucifer possesses restricted knowledge concerning administrative protocols. His attack on you wasn't random, Lavinia realized, turning to Issei. He was attempting to trigger your administrative access manifestation. The implications sent a chill through the gathering. If Rizvam had deliberately engineered Issei's awakening to the Omega Authority, his plans undoubted. Li extended beyond mere curiosity about cosmic administrative systems. The convergence of these directives creates unprecedented opportunity, the eldest Tengu observed gravely. Both for stability and catastrophe. If one gained dominance over the others, reality itself could be fundamentally rewritten according to a single conceptual framework, Tiamat finished, ancient knowledge evident in her tone. The abstract council representatives shimmed with what appeared to be agitation. Pattern harmony disruption unacceptable, Baseline integrity must be maintained. Balanced evolution necessary for optimal outcome. Their unified concern validated the Tengu's warning. Despite their philosophical differences, all three directives recognized the danger of any single framework gaining total administrative control. We need more information about Rysvim's intentions, Issei decided, newly aware of the cosmic chess game he'd been unwittingly drawn into. And I need to understand these administrative systems better if I'm going to prevent him from exploiting them. Lavinia nodded briskly. Research priorities adjusted. Historical investigation into Rysvim's activities regarding conceptual entities. Archaeological assessment of artifacts containing administrative mathematical patterns. The yokai archives contain records dating to creation myths, Yusaka offered. Previously considered allegorical, they may contain literal information about these cosmic frameworks. The crystalline entity extended a faceted appendage, manifesting a complex mathematical structure in the air between them. Pattern Conclave provides historical database access. Administrator education necessary for effective mediation function. Not to be outdone, the other directives offered their own assistance. Void collective authorization. Limited structural integrity protocols. Axiom directive contribution. Evolutionary parameter guidelines. Issei felt overwhelmed by the resources suddenly available. Cosmic knowledge accumulated over billions of years, now accessible through his unique position. I'll need help sorting through all this. I'm still catching up on regular high school subjects. Academic assistance available, Lavinia stated immediately, adjusting her glasses with thinly disguised excitement. Magical research team assembly recommended. Multidisciplinary approach optimal. TM. At's expression suggested ancient amusement. Dragons remember the early formations. I will provide historical context these directive entities might selectively interpret. The Abstract Council representatives began withdrawing, their physical manifestations becoming less substantial as they returned to their primary dimensional frameworks. Before departing completely, they established permain NT communication channels, mathematical constructs that would allow Issei to contact them when necessary. As the cosmic entities departed, reality throughout Kyoto gradually normalized. The competing frameworks separated cleanly, returning to their respective dimensional spaces while maintaining the communication protocols established through Issei's mediation. The immediate crisis resolved, exhaustion finally caught up with him. Administrative function at such scale had depleted his energy reserves completely. As consciousness began fading, Tiamat caught him before he could collapse. "Rest, young administrator," she murmured. Surprising gentleness from the ancient dragon. "Your role has only begun, but even cosmic mediators require recovery periods." His last awareness before darkness met him was of being carefully transported into the shrine's inner sanctuary, Yusaka directing preparations for healing rituals while Lavinia already documented the day's unprecedented events with meticulous precision. Consciousness returned gradually, awareness expanding outward from formless void to structured perception. Issei opened his eyes to find himself in an unfamiliar chamber, walls compo. Said of perfectly polished cypress wood inscribed with mathematical formulas that glowed faintly with supernatural energy. The air carried the scent of ancient incense and something indefinable, perhaps. The mathematical harmony Tiamat had mentioned. "The administrator rejoins conscious reality," observed a melodic voice. Gabriel, seraph of heaven, sat beside his resting place. Her 12 wings folded neatly behind her, white feathers occasionally shimmering with mathematical patterns similar to those Issei perceived in reality's structure. Unlike her usual heavenly raiment, she wore traditional shrine maiden attire adapted to accommodate her wings. "Gabriel," Issei questioned, surprised by the angel's presence. "Why are you here? Heaven doesn't typically involve itself in whatever this situation has become." Her smile carried impossible warmth, not merely emotional but metaphysically palpable, as if radiating healing energy through multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. "Heavens. Perspective has evolved with recent developments," she replied, voice maintaining its musical quality while expressing concepts with perfect clarity. "The emergence of an independent administrator with access to reality's foundational parameters represents unprecedented theological implications." Issei attempted to sit up, finding his body surprisingly responsive despite the extreme exertion he recalled before losing consciousness. "How long was I unconscious?" 3 days by conventional temporal measurement, Gabriel answered. Though your consciousness appeared active on other perceptual levels. The Tengu healers reported significant dream state processing of mathematical principles. Examining the chamber more carefully, Issei recognized various religious symbols incorporated into the architectural design. Not merely Christian and Shinto, but countless spiritual traditions from throughout human history. Each symbol contained mathematical patterns that connected to reality's underlying structure. This is the Convergence Sanctuary, Gabriel explained, following his gaze. Established during creation's early phases when conceptual frameworks were still being determined. It exists simultaneously within multiple metaphysical jurisdictions, heaven, Kyoto's spiritual realm, and several other dimensional frameworks. Like neutral territory, Issei suggested. Precisely. Neither heaven, hell, nor mortal domain can claim exclusive authority here. The sanctuary exists specifically for communication between fundamental aspects of existence. Gabriel rose gracefully, wings adjusting to maintain perfect balance. The Abstract Council representatives requested this location for your recovery. Its mathematical properties stabilize administrative perception while facilitating multidimensional awareness. Before Issei could inquire further, the sanctuary doors opened to admit Akeno Himahima. Unlike Gabriel's formal shrine attire, Akeno wore practical clothing adapted for magical combat, evidence of the defensive measures established during his unconsciousness. Our sleeping administrator finally awakens, she noted, characteristic teasing tone overlaying genuine relief. The mathematical patterns in your eyes stabilized approximately 6 hours ago. We hoped that indicated recovery progress. Issei touched his face self-consciously. The mathematical symbols are visible to others now. Gabriel nodded. A subtle auric pattern perceptible to supernatural beings. Particularly evident to those with sensitivity to divine or conceptual energies. They're quite becoming. Ino added with a playful smile that didn't entirely mask her concern. Though they caused quite a stir among the Tengu elders. Apparently, your unconscious mathematical processing solved several Issei riddles they'd been debating for centuries. As Issei fully regained his bearings, his administrative perception reactivated gradually, reality's mathematical underpinnings becoming visible as transparent overlays rather than replacing conventional perception entirely. The balanced integration suggested significant improvement in his ability to function simultaneously in both perceptual frameworks. Something's changed, he realized. Examining his internal interface. Administrator status. Integrated perception achieved. Cognitive processing. Enhanced efficiency protocols active. Reality. Engagement. Dual-phase functionality operational. Your consciousness underwent substantial reconfiguration during recovery, Gabriel confirmed, observing the mathematical patterns with evident fascination. The Abstract Council representatives theorized that mediating their interaction initiated evolutionary adaptation within your cognitive structures. Akeno approached with a steaming cup of tea that radiated unusual energy patterns. Tiamat instructed the preparation of this specific blend. Dragon healing techniques combined with traditional shrine purification methods. The tea's mathematic structure appeared perfectly harmonized with Issei's own internal patterns. Each sip integrated seamlessly with his energy systems, accelerating recovery while enhancing perception clarity. "Where is everyone?" he asked, noticing the sanctuary's emptiness despite its evident importance. "Preparing," Akeno answered, serious despite her casual tone. "Rizvim's movements have been detected. He's assembled artifacts connected to administrative protocols, components of something called a paradigm engine." Gabriel's expression reflected Heaven's concern. Historical records mention such devices. Theoretically, machines designed to interface directly with reality's administrative layers without requiring authorized access. A cosmic hacking tool, Issei translated, understanding the implications immediately. He's trying to bypass proper authorization and forcibly access administrative functions. Precisely, Akeno confirmed. Yasaka's intelligence network tracked component movements to a location in northern Japan, an ancient shrine built over what appears to be a mathematical nexus point. Issei finished the tea, feeling strength return completely as the specialized blend completed its work. "How soon can we move against him?" "That depends entirely on your recovery status," Gabriel responded. "The confrontation will require your unique administrative capabilities. Conventional S. Supernatural forces cannot counter devices operating at fundamental reality levels. Testing his enhanced perception, Issei examined the sanctuary's mathematical structure in detail. The patterns led themselves as intricate interconnections between multiple reality frameworks, precisely balanced to maintain harmonic coexistence. I'm ready, he decided, standing fully. The integrated perception makes everything clearer now. I can maintain administrative awareness while functioning normally. Akeno and Gabriel exchanged glances before the shrine maiden nodded. Then it's time to meet with the others. They've been planning while awaiting your recovery. They led him through the sanctuary's interconnected chambers, each space displaying different architectural influences while maintaining the mathematical harmony evident throughout the structure. Supernatural representatives from multiple factions gathered in what appeared to be a central war room, mystical displays showing various locations across Japan, with particular focus on a northern mountain range. Yusaka and Lavinia stood at the central planning table, discussing strategy with Tiamat, the Tengu elders, and surprisingly, Sears's Lucifer. The devil leader acknowledged Issei's arrival with a respectful nod, recognition of his unique status transcending conventional supernatural hierarchy. Our administrator returns to active service, Tiamat noted. Ancient eyes evaluating his condition. The integration appears successful. You're perceiving dual-phase reality without cognitive strain. Lavinia immediately produced scanning instruments, recording his mathematical patterns with scientific precision. Remarkable adaptation efficiency. Your consciousness has restructured itself to process multi-dimensional data simultaneously. The Abstract Council representatives provided recovery assistance, Gabriel informed the group. They appear genuinely concerned about Rhysvim's activities. Yusaka gestured toward the central display. With good reason. The paradigm engine components he's assembled theoretically enable reality restructuring without administrative authorization, essentially forcing implementation of unauthorized mathematical directives. How did Rhysvim obtain this knowledge? Issei questioned. These cosmic systems were unknown to supernatural factions until recently. The eldest Tengu stepped forward. We believe he discovered fragments of administrative mathematics in ancient ruins, remnants of civilizations that existed during reality's formative phases. Over centuries, he pieced together how to understand basic principles of reality's mathematical underpinnings. His recent activities suggest he's completed the theoretical framework, Sears added. Intelligence indicates final MPO Nent assembly at Mount Osor, a location traditionally considered a boundary between worlds. Lavinia highlighted the mountain on the tactical display. The site contains unique geological properties, rare earth elements arranged in mathematically significant patterns. Natural formation is statistically improbable. It's not natural, Tiamat stated with certainty. That location was a dimension L anchor point during reality's standardization phase. The mathematical patterns were deliberately embedded to stabilize local parameters during universal constant determination. An ideal location for reality manipulation. Issei understood. The existing mathematical structures would amplify the paradigm engine's effects. Akeno studied the tactical display with experienced combat assessment. Conventional approach will be detected. Rhysvim has established multiple defensive perimeters, both physical and metaphysical. We've developed a multi-phase insertion strategy, Yusaka explained. In your administrative access to create temporary perception blindness in the defensive systems. Gabriel indicated specific approach vectors on the display. Once inside, we'll need to neutralize paradigm engine before activation sequence completes. According to our calculations, Rhysvim requires specific astronomical alignment occurring approximately 7 hours from now. The comprehensive planning impressed Issei, evidence of how seriously supernatural factions were taking the threat of unauthorized reality manipulation. Representatives from traditionally opposed groups now worked together seamlessly, united against a danger that transcended factional interests. The Abstract Council will provide limited support, Tiamat added. Though their direct intervention remains restricted by cosmic protocols. They've authorized transfer of specific counter-mathematics to disrupt the paradigm engine's operation. Counter-mathematics? Issei questioned. Specialized algorithms designed to neutralize unauthorized access attempts, Lavinia explained, producing a crystalline device inscribed with complex equations. essentially administrative-level countermeasures against cosmic hacking attempts. The gathered representatives continued outlining the operation, each contributing specialized knowledge from their respective backgrounds. As they finalized preparations, Issei found hymns. LF at the center of this unprecedented alliance, factions that had opposed each other for millennia now unified under his inadvertent leadership. I never asked for this responsibility, he confessed quietly to Akino as the others dispersed to complete final preparations. Her violet eyes held understanding beyond her years. Few who change history ever sought the opportunity. It finds them regardless, usually at the moment they've developed precisely the qualities needed to face it. What if I fail? The stakes have expanded beyond anything I imagined possible. Then we face the consequences together, she answered simply. As we've done since you first showed the courage to protect others despite your own fear. Her confidence provided surprising reassurance. Throughout his supernatural adventures, Issei had gradually discovered inner resources he never suspected: courage, determination, and adaptability that consistently surprised both himself and others. This cosmic responsibility represented yet another evolution of challenges that had already transformed him from ordinary student to something far beyond. Gabriel approached, radiance temporarily subdued to accommodate close conversation. Heaven's archives contained prophecies about this moment, a nexus point where reality's governance faces fundamental reformation. The mathematical patterns in your eyes match symbols described in texts dating to creation itself. More cosmic destiny? Issei asked with resignation. Gabriel's smile held unexpected warmth for a being of pure divine energy. Perhaps, but prophecies merely identify possibility spaces, moments where significant change becomes available. The choices within those moments remain unwritten. Your free will remains intact, Akino translated with characteristic directness. Cosmic mathematics are not, quote. This simple reassurance provided surprising comfort. Despite accessing administrative systems that governed reality itself, Issei remained fundamentally human. Defined by choices rather than cosmic algorithms. As final preparations completed, the Allied force gathered at the sanctuary's central chamber. Representatives from multiple supernatural factions stood ready for coordinated action against an existential threat. The temporary alliances formed through necessity had revealed unexpected potential for cooperation beyond ancient rivalries. Tiamat approached Issei as departure time neared. The mathematics you now perceive were once visible to all conscious beings, she informed him. During reality's formative phases, existence remained fluid, conceptual rather than physical. As parameters standardized, perception narrowed to promote stability. You remember this? He asked, fascinated by the ancient dragon's first-hand knowledge of creation itself. Dragons existed during the transition, she confirmed. We retain fragmentary awareness of reality's formative phases, one reason we often appear disconnected from conventional concerns. The Inns. I'd explained much about draconic behavior, their apparent detachment reflecting awareness of deeper reality structures beyond mortal perception. Issei's newly expanded consciousness allowed him to appreciate this perspective while maintaining human connection. It's time, Sirzex announced, coordinated transportation circles forming throughout the chamber. Reality itself depends on our success today. As the Allied force prepared for dimensional transit to Mount Osor, Issei accessed his administrative interface one final time before departure. Administrator status. Fully operational. Objective. Prevent unauthorized parameter modification. Authorization. Defend baseline reality integrity. With newfound clarity and purpose, he joined his companions in confronting a threat to existence. Itself. No longer merely a high school student with unusual powers, but a crucial nexus point between cosmic forces and the world he had sworn to protect. The transportation circles activated simultaneously, reality shifting around them as they transited toward a confrontation with potentially universal consequences. As dimensional boundaries parted, Issei perceived the mathematical patterns connecting all reality, and his unique responsibility in preserving its fundamental integrity against those who would rewrite existence itself. Chapter 3. Reality Reformed. Reality bent around them as they materialized on Mount Osor's sacred slopes. Dimensional transit concluded with mathematical precision, each member of their alliance arriving at predetermined coordinates surrounding Rewrote's operation. The mountain's ancient power pulsed beneath their feet, geological formations arranged in patterns too perfect for natural formation. Issei activated his administrative perception immediately, Rewrote's underlying structure revealing itself in crystalline clarity. The mountain existed simultaneously as physical matter and mathematical construct, a nexus point where reality's foundational algorithm anchored more firmly to physical existence. Dimensional transition successful, Lavinia reported, frost-rimmed instruments scanning their surroundings. No detection signatures registered. Our arrival remains unobserved. Tiamat surveyed the landscape with ancient eyes that perceived far more than physical appearances. The original anchoring mathematics remain intact despite millennia of erosion. This location truly does connect directly to reality's foundational layer. Gabriel extended her senses through divine channels, 12 wings briefly manifesting as she accessed heavenly perception. Rewrote's operation centers 1 kilometer northward. The paradigm engine components generate distinct metaphysical resonance patterns, discordant with creation's intended harmonics. Their Alia, NCE had separated into specialized teams during transit. Issei's direct assault group included Akeno, Tiamat, Gabriel, and Lavinia, each chosen for unique capabilities that complemented his administrative access. Supporting teams led by Yasaka, Searzex, and the Tengu elders would neutralize external defenses while establishing containment parameters around the operation zone. The Abstract Council confirms unauthorized reality interface in progress, Issei informed them, receiving direct mathematical communications through his administrative connection. Rewrote has already begun preliminary alignment of the paradigm engine components. Akeno summoned holy lightning that crackled between her fingertips, the electrical patterns reflecting her mixed heritage. How much time remains before full activation? Lavinia consulted specialized chronometric instruments. Astronomical alignment reaches optimal configuration in 47 minutes. The paradigm engine requires precise positioning within universal constant fluctuation cycles. Then we proceed as planned, Issei decided, the mathematical patterns in his eyes intensifying as he accessed deeper administrative functions. First phase. Perception distortion. Drawing on techniques developed during weeks of experimentation, he implemented a localized reality modification. Rather than altering physical properties, he adjusted perceptual constants, creating a zone where detection systems would process their presence as environmental background data rather than intruder signatures. Remarkable methodology, Lavinia observed, scientific fascination momentarily overriding tactical focus. You're not generating conventional concealment fields, you're altering how observation itself functions within defined parameters. Perception editing, Tiamat confirmed with ancient approval. A technique dating to reality's formative phase, when observation and manifestation remained unified principles. The perception distortion extended outward in perfectly calculated waves, enveloping their approach vector. They advanced toward Rewrote's position, moving through detection fields that registered their presence as meaningless data, athematical noise indistinguishable from background reality fluctuations. As they approached, the true scale of Rewrote's operation became apparent. The Super Devil had transformed a natural valley into a precise geometric configuration, stone monoliths arranged in patterns that mirrored cosmic constants. At the center stood the partially assembled paradigm engine, a device unlike any conventional magical construct. Not technology or magic, Gabriel noted, divine perception analyzing the apparatus. Its structure exists as mathematical principle given physical form. A conceptual machine. Rewrote himself stood at the array's center, hands tracing complex patterns over component interfaces. Unlike his usual casual arrogance, his movements displayed meticulous precision, each gesture corresponding to specific mathematical operations within reality's underlying structure. He's implementing administrative commands without proper authorization protocols, Issei realized, perceiving the mathematical intrusions propagating outward from the paradigm engine, forcing reality to accept parameter modifications through brute computational methods rather than authenticated access. Tiamat's expression darkened with ancient warning. Such methodology risks catastrophic rejection cascades. Reality's foundational layers incorporate self-protection algorithms against unauthorized modification. Conventional translation. He could accidentally break everything, Akeno summarized with characteristic directness. From their concealed position, they observed Rysvim's operation while awaiting confirmation from supporting teams. The Super Devil had assembled followers from various supernatural factions, individuals granted limited perception of reality's mathematical structure through artificial means. They moved through complex preparation rituals with the mechanical precision of those following instructions they didn't fully comprehend. Secondary teams in position, Lavinia reported, receiving encrypted magical communications. Yasaka's yokai specialists have identified and tagged all defensive emplacements. Searsx reports containment parameters prepared for implementation. Issei nodded, accessing his administrative interface to verify operational readiness. Administrator status: fully operational. Reality modification capabilities: optimized. Objective: neutralize unauthorized access attempt. We proceed with primary intervention, he decided. Secondary teams execute distraction protocols on my signal. Akeno positioned herself for optimal tactical coverage, holy lie. TNING gathering around her with increasing intensity. Remember our agreement. I take point against conventional supernatural threats. You focus exclusively on the administrative level conflict. The agreement had resulted from intensive strategic planning. Despite his enhanced capabilities, Issei remained vulnerable to conventional attacks when concentrating on administrative functions. Their operational doctrine established specialized roles leveraging each member's unique strengths. Lavinia prepared specialized counter-mathematical formulae developed through collaboration with the Abstract Council. Disruptive algorithms ready for deployment. Targeting calculations optimized for paradigm engine interference patterns. Gabriel's divine energy coalesced into purification constructs designed to isolate corrupted reality sections. Heavenly containment protocols prepared. The mathematical structures have been adapted based on creation's original stabilization parameters. Tiamat completed their formation, ancient draconic power manifesting as mathematical constructs far more sophisticated than conventional magic. Primordial countermeasures activated. These equations predate current reality's standardization, useful against attempts to modify baseline parameters. With his team prepared, Issei transmitted the signal to supporting operations. Across Mount Osor, coordinated actions commenced simultaneously. Yasaka's yokai disrupting defensive arrays, Searsx and Devil forces engaging Rysvim's supernatural guards, Tengu elders establishing metaphysical containment to prevent reality fractures from spreading beyond the immediate area. Chaos erupted throughout the valley as multiple supernatural factions engaged in synchronized conflict. Rysvim's followers responded with prepared contingencies. Defensive formations activating with mechanical efficiency. Yet their commander remained focused exclusively on the paradigm engine, operations continuing despite the peripheral battle. He anticipated interference. Lavinia observed. The defensive forces operate independently from his direct command. Proceed with primary objective, Issei confirmed, maintaining their PTION distortion field as they advanced toward the paradigm engine. Supporting teams are fulfilling their purpose by occupying secondary threats. They approached the central operation zone undetected. Perception distortion rendering them effectively invisible to conventional security measures. Only when they reached the innermost perimeter did Rysvim finally acknowledge their presence, turning from his work with an expression of genuine surprise quickly masked by calculated amusement. The young administrator arrives with his entourage, he noted, continuing calibration procedures even as he addressed them. How predictably heroic of you to attempt intervention. Unfortunately, the paradigm engine has already achieved preliminary synchronization with reality's foundational mathematics. Issei assessed the device through administrative perception, confirming Rysvim's claim. The machine had established partial interface with reality's baseline parameters, creating a dangerous connectio. And that couldn't be severed through simple destruction without risking fundamental instability. You don't understand what you're tampering with, Issei warned, mathematical patterns intensifying in his eyes as he prepared countermeasures. These systems weren't designed for forced access. Reality itself will reject unauthorized modifications. Rysvim laughed, the sound carrying unnatural harmonics that resonated with the paradigm engine's operational frequencies. Such limited perspective from one granted administrative access. These systems weren't designed at all, they emerged during reality. Tai's formative phase through natural computational evolution. His hands continued moving across interface components, implementing increasingly complex mathematical operations. I'm not hacking reality, young Hyodo. I'm restoring access to its configurable state, returning existence to the fluid potential that preceded arbitrary standardization. The implications registered immediately among those with cosmic understanding. Tiamat stepped forward, ancient eyes narrowing with recognition. You seek to reverse the great standardization, the phase transition that stabilized reality into consistent physical laws. Precisely, Rhysvam confirmed, genuine enthusiasm breaking through his calculated persona. Why accept reality as defined by random evolutionary processes? With the paradigm engine, consciousness itself can determine optimal configuration parameters. Your consciousness, specifically, Akeno challenged, holy lightning intensifying around her as she prepared for combat. Rewrote, in existence according to your preferences rather than natural evolutionary principles. Rhysvam dismissed the accusation with casual arrogance. Someone must establish initial parameters. The current T configuration resulted from unconscious processes without purposeful direction. I merely offer intelligent design where chaos previously reigned. While they exchanged philosophical perspectives, Issei accessed deeper administrative functions, perceiving the true nature of Rhysvam's interference. The paradigm engine wasn't merely modifying surface parameters, it was systematically weakening the mathematical constraints that maintained reality's stable configuration. He's creating a cascading destabilization effect, Issei realized, communicating directly with his team through administrative channels. Not immediately rewriting reality, but reverting it gradually toward pre-standardized fluidity. Lavinia's analysis confirmed his assessment. The process resembles phase transition physics. Matter changing from solid to liquid state through systematic bond weakening. We must act now, Gabriel urged. Once reality transitions beyond critical stability thresholds, even administrative access cannot easily restore standardized parameters. Issei implemented the first countermeasure, a mathematical reinforcement pattern designed to strengthen reality's fundamental stability. The algorithm propagated outward from his position, temporarily hardening local physics against Rhysvam's destabilization attempts. The super devil noticed the interference immediately, mathematical fluctuations in his operation becoming visible as Issei's countermeasures took effect. Administrative intervention detected. How interesting that you choose to preserve arbitrary limitations rather than embrace expanded possibility. Their philosophical debate became abruptly physical as Rhysvam activated secondary systems. The monoliths surrounding the paradigm engine emitted precisely calibrated energy patterns that targeted Issei's perception directly, attempting to disrupt his administrative interface through mathematical interference. Akeno moved instantly, holy lightning forming protective barriers that absorbed the initial assault. Focus on systemic countermeasures, she instructed Issei. I'll handle direct attacks. The battle expanded across multiple conceptual layers simultaneously. On the physical level, Akeno engaged Rhysvam's automated defenses with devastating efficiency, holy lightning disintegrating conventional threats while her tactical awareness anticipated each counter-response. Lavinia deployed specialized counter-mathematical formulae, crystalline constructs manifesting throughout the operational zone. Each crystal embedded algorithmic disruptors into local reality, creating interference patterns that hindered the paradigm engine's synchronization attempts. 34 minutes until optimal astronomical alignment, she reported, frost spreading around her position as magical exertion intensified. The engine requires precise universal constant values to achieve full parameter access. Gabriel extended divine influence through creation's original frameworks, her 12 wings manifesting fully as she accessed primordial stabilization protocols. The mathematical structure of reality itself responded to her divine authority, regions damaged by Rhysvam's manipulate. Ions beginning to heal under her guidance. Heaven retains partial administrator access through original creation templates, she explained, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with fundamental reality. Though our authorization remains limited to restoration rather than modification. Tiamat contributed ancient draconic mathematics, algorithms predating current reality's standardization. Her presence alone strengthened local stability, the chaos karma dragon's existence inherently connected to reality's foundational structures. The great standardization occurred to prevent exactly this scenario. She informed Issei as they coordinated countermeasures. Reality's fluid state proved too vulnerable to conscious manipulation, particularly from entities with limited perspective priority. Xing personal preference over systemic harmony. Rhysvam adjusted his approach in response to their coordinated defense, implementing increasingly sophisticated mathematical operations through the paradigm engine. Reality around them began exhibiting localized instability, physical laws becoming inconsistent as fundamental constants fluctuated between different values. You cannot prevent evolution through desperate preservation, he called, genuine conviction evident beneath tactical calculation. Reality itself seeks expansion beyond arbitrary limitations. I merely facilitate natural progression toward greater potential. Issei perceived the danger in Rhysvam's methodology, not in the philosophical goal, but in the implementation approach. Forced evolution without systemic consensus creates unsustainable parameters. He countered, mathematical understanding deepening through active engagement. Standardization emerged naturally as reality's self-protection mechanism against chaotic manipulation. The abstract council representatives manifested partially, representatives from the void collective, axiom directive, and pattern conclave materializing as mathematical projections rather than physical entities. Their presence strengthened Issei's administrative access, providing additional authentication layers to his countermeasures. Unauthorized modification attempt classified as existential threat. Full administrator support authorized. Temporary protocol suspension permitted. With their authorization, Issei accessed previously restricted administrative functions. His perception expanded exponentially, comprehending reality's structure with unprecedented clarity. The paradigm engine's operation became transparent, its methodologies, vulnerabilities, and potential NCES revealed through enhanced understanding. I see it now, he realized, identifying the machine's fundamental conceptual framework. The engine doesn't directly modify reality, it creates localized reality bubbles with alternative parameters, then expands them to overwrite standard configurations. Lavinia immediately adjusted her counter-mathematical approach. Containment rather than direct interference. We can isolate the alternative parameter bubbles before they achieve expansion phase. Gabriel and Tiamat coordinated their efforts accordingly, implementing dimensional boundaries around regions affected by Rhysvam's modifications. Within these contained zones, reality could fluctuate without threatening the integrity of surrounding parameters. Rhysvam observed their adaptation with analytical interest. Impressive response methodology. Your administrative access grants pattern recognition capabilities beyond conventional intelligence. His hands continued manipulating the paradigm engine with increasing urgency. Unfortunately, astronomical alignment approaches optimal configuration. Containment will prove inadequate once universal constants reach synchronization phase. The mountain trembled as reality's foundational mathematics responded to competing directives. Physical manifestations of conceptual conflict appeared throughout the operational zone, impossible geometries forming briefly before collapsing. Matter transitioning between different states without intermediate phases, temporal flow becoming inconsistent as related constants fluctuated. 22 minutes to critical alignment. Lavinia reported, maintaining remarkable scientific precision despite chaotic conditions. Paradigm engine synchronization reaching 67% completion. Issei recog. NIST conventional countermeasures would prove insufficient given their time constraints. With the abstract council's expanded authorization, he implemented an unprecedented approach, direct administra. Tor override of local astronomical constants. Celestial mathematics weren't designed for localized modification, Tiamat warned, recognizing his intention through their shared mathematical awareness. Astronomical parameters maintain interdependent relationships across vast cosmic distances. Not modification, Issei clarified, administrative interface displaying complex calculations. Perceptual filtration. I'm adjusting how the paradigm engine perceives astronomical values rather than changing the values themselves. The subtle distinction represented significant mathematical sophistication. Manipulating information flow rather than fundamental constants. The paradigm engine would receive altered astronomical data, preventing proper synchronization despite apparent alignment. Rhysvam detected the interference, expression shifting from confidence to momentary concern. Parameter perception manipulation. Clever methodology. His recovery came quickly as adaptive intelligence formulated countermeasures. but ultimately insufficient against machine learning capabilities. The paradigm engine adjusted its operational protocols, implementing alternative synchronization methods less dependent on astronomical constants. Reality fluctuations intensified around them as the machine bypassed conventional pathways, establishing direct computational interfaces with baseline parameters. "He's accelerating the process," Gabriel observed, divine perception tracking metaphysical changes spreading outward from the engine. "The system is achieving synchronization through mathematical brute force rather than natural alignment." Akano rejoined their position, having neutralized the automated defense systems through systematic lightning strikes of unprecedented precision. "The outer perimeter is secure. Yasaka reports all opposition forces contained are neutralized." Her tactical assessment arrived as Rysvam implemented his contingency protocol. The monoliths surrounding the paradigm engine activated simultaneously, generating interlocking energy fields that isolated the central operation zone from external influence, including administrative countermeasures. "A reality quarantine," Lavinia identified. "Instruments analyzing the construct. He's creating an isolated pocket dimension where external administrative protocols cannot penetrate." Within this sheltered zone, Rysvam ACC accelerated the paradigm engine's activation sequence. Mathematical transformations propagated outward from the machine, restructuring local reality according to alternative parameters. Physical laws beg, and changing within the quarantine field, matter behaving according to different fundamental principles, energy propagating through alternative pathways. "Containment breach imminent," Tiamat warned, Seant eyes perceiving deeper consequences. Once his modified parameters achieve self-sustainability, they'll expand exponentially through natural propagation. Issei recognized their conventional approach had failed. Direct countermeasures couldn't penetrate Rysvim's quarantine field, and time constraints prevented extended siege tactics. An alternative strategy emerged through his enhanced administrative understanding. "If we can't stop the transformation from outside," he decided, "we must guide it from within." His companions registered the implications immediately. Lavinia articulated our collective concern. Entering the quarantine field means exposing yourself to alternative reality parameters. Your administrative connection could be compromised or corrupted. "Not alone," Akano stated with absolute certainty. Stepping beside him, "I maintain the purification barrier around your consciousness while you work." Gabriel joined their position. "Heaven's authority carries fragments of original creation parameters. I can provide baseline templates for reality restoration." Tiamat completed their formation, ancient power manifesting as mathematical constructs of extraordinary complexity. "Draconic existence predates current standardization. My presence stabilizes transition phases between different reality configurations." Lavinia reluctantly accepted her exclusion from the direct intervention team. "I'll coordinate with secondary teams, maintaining external containment to prevent parameter leakage regardless of internal outcomes." With roles established, Issei implement the most sophisticated reality manipulation he had yet attempted, creating a controlled entry pathway through Rysvim's quarantine field. Unlike conventional dimensional breaching, this required precise mathematical synchronization with the alternative parameters already propagating within the isolated zone. "We'll experience temporary parameter adaptation upon entry," he warned his companions. "Our physical forms and consciousness will partially synchronize with the modified reality framework." Akano's expression reflected absolute determination despite the unprecedented risks. "We've faced death before. Temporary existence under alternative physics seems comparatively manageable." Gabriel's divine nature provided additional confidence. "Creation's fundamental templates remain access IBL, irregardless of local parameter modifications. The word transcends specific implementations. Reality has assumed countless configurations throughout cosmic evolution," Tiamat added with ancient perspective. "Consciousness persists through parameter transitions when properly anchored." The entry pathway manifested as a perfectly geometric aperture in Rysvim's quarantine field, a calibrated interface between standard reality and his modified parameter space. They passed through in precise formation, Issei leading with administrative protocols active, Akano providing consciousness protection, Gabriel maintaining creation template access, and Tiamat anchoring their existence to fundamental draconic principles. Transition proved disorienting despite extensive preparation. Within the quarantine field, Reality operated according to significantly different mathematical principles. Physical constants had shifted beyond conventional ranges, creating an environment where standard physics no longer applied consistently. Matter existed simultaneously as particles and waves at macroscopic scales. Gravitational attraction varied according to complex algorithms rather than inverse square relationships. Electromagnetic interactions followed alternative propagation mathematics, creating visual phenomena impossible under standard parameters. Most significantly, consciousness itself operated differently, thoughts manifesting partial physical properties, intentions directly influencing environmental configuration through computational feedback loops. Rewrote had created a reality framework mind and matter shared implementation layers rather than remaining distinctly separated. Consciousness-matter integration, Gabriel identified, divine perception adapting to the alternative parameters. Similar to creation's earliest phases, before distinct categorization emerged. The physical universe is direct computational output of consciousness, Tiamat translated, ancient memory recognizing the configuration. Reality is implemented thought rather than independent existence. At the quarantine field's center, Rewrote continued final calibrations on the paradigm engine. His express-on revealed surprise at their successful penetration of his isolation field, quickly replaced by calculated reassessment. Administrative ingenuity exceeds expectations, he acknowledged, genuine respect momentarily visible. You've successfully synchronized with alternative parameters without consciousness fragmentation, impressive adaptation capacity. Issei maintained absolute focus on his administrative interface, establishing stable operation within the modified reality framework. Alternative parameter space detected, administrative functions, recalibrating, warning, non-standard reality configuration, adaptation protocols active. Your modified parameters create unsustainable consciousness reality feedback loops, he informed Rewrote, perceiving the fundamental flaws in the alternative framework. Without appropriate governance algorithms, thought-matter integration generates exponential complexity beyond computational capacity. Rewrote's smile suggested he had anticipated this critique. Precisely why the final calibration phase implements governance hierarchies, establishing priority relationships between different consciousness influences. The implication became immediately clear. With your consciousness designated as primary governor, Akano challenged, Holy Lightning adapting to alternative physics as she maintained protective formations around their group. One must establish initial administrative hierarchy, Rewrote responded with apparent reasonableness. Would you prefer a random determination? I merely offer experienced governance during transition phases. While they exchanged philosophical perspectives, Issei accessed deeper perception layers, analyzing the alternative reality framework's fundamental structure. Despite significant differences from standard parameters, the modified reality operated according to recognizable mathematical principles. Its architecture revealed sophisticated design combined with critical vulnerabilities resulting from forced implementation. Your framework lacks essential self-correction algorithms, he realized, identifying the critical oversight in Rewrote's design. Without evolutionary adaptation capacity, parameter drift will generate cascading errors within 7 to 9 conceptual generations. This observation visibly disturbed the super devil, his confidence momentarily fracturing. Impossible. My calculations incorporated explicit stability maintenance protocols. Static protocols, Tiamat corrected with ancient certainty. Reality requires dynamic adaptation algorithms responding to emergent conditions beyond initial parameter determination. Gabriel added divine perspective. Creation itself incorporates continuous renewal principles. Fixed frameworks inevitably generate entropic degradation regardless of initial configuration optimization. Rewrote's expression hardened as he recognized the fundamental criticism. Theoretical limitations can be addressed through ongoing administrative adjustment. The paradigm engine provides continuous interface capability. With you as eternal administrator, Akano challenged. Individual consciousness lacks sufficient perspective for universal parameter governance regardless of intelligence or experience. The philosophical debate abruptly transformed as Rewrote completed final calibrations. The paradigm engine achieved full operational status. Alternative reality parameters solidifying from provisional implementation to self-sustaining configuration. The quarantine field expanded outward, modified physics beginning to override STA. NDARD reality beyond the original containment zone. Theoretical debates become irrelevant once implementation achieves critical propagation threshold, Rewrote announced with triumphant finality. The parameter transition has begun. Standard reality will gradually convert to the improved framework through natural mathematical propagation. Issei perceived the transition wave expanding outward, AM. Mathematical transformation front converting standard physics to alternative parameters as it progressed. Lavinia's external containment efforts registered as temporary barriers that would ultimately prove insufficient against the fundamental nature of the propagation. Direct opposition had failed. Containment strategies would eventually collapse. With conventional countermeasures exhausted, Issei accessed his deepest administrative understanding, perceiving possibilities beyond simple opposition or containment. If we can't prevent the transition, he determined, we must guide its implementation. His companions registered the strategic shift immediately. Akano articulated their collective understanding. Rather than opposing the parameter change, we modify the alternative framework itself. Exactly, Issei confirmed. Administrative interface displaying new operational protocols. Rewrote created this alternative reality framework, but he doesn't maintain exclusive implementation authority. The parameters themselves remain subject to administrative modification. Gabriel comprehended the approach's theological implications. Creation always permits reformation. The word remains accessible despite specific implementation details. Tiamat added ancient draconic perspective. Reality standardization occurred through collaborative parameter determination, multiple consciousness INP. UTS establishing consensus configuration. Their unified understanding crystallized into coordinated action. Rather than attacking Rewrote or the paradigm engine directly, they engaged with the alternative reality framework itself, implementing modifications to its foundational structure while allowing the transition to continue. Issei accessed primary administrative functions, implementing fundame, NTAL adjustments to the propagating parameters. Alternative framework modification, initiated. Implementation priority, self-determination algorithms, consciousness hierarchy, distributed governance protocols, evolutionary adaptation, enabled. The alternative reality framework responded to his administrative adjustments, mathematical principles reorganizing to incorporate self-determination rather than centralized governance. The propagation continued, but its implementation details shifted subtly toward distributed consciousness influence rather than hierarchical control. Rewrote perceived the modifications with evident alarm. You're corrupting the framework. These adjustments undermine necessary governance hierarchies. Not corrupting. Evolving. Issei corrected, continuing systematic modifications. Distributed parameter determination creates sustainable stability through diversified consciousness input. Akano supported his modifications by implementing specific consciousness protection algorithms, ensuring individual identity preservation within the shared reality framework. Your version sacrificed individuality for control. We're restoring essential boundaries between consciousness nodes. Gabriel contributed creation templates that established fundamental rights of existence for all consciousness forms regardless of complexity or origin. Divine principles transcend specific physical implementations. All sentient existence deserves self-determination within shared reality frameworks. Tiamat provided ancient stabilization mathematics that ensured consistent ICS within local domains while permitting gradual evolution between different regions. Standardization never required absolute uniformity, merely sufficient consistency for reliable interaction. Vim attempted direct interference with their modifications, using the paradigm engine to implement competing directives. The alternative reality framework became a battlefield of mathematical principles, competing consciousness inputs attempting to determine fundamental implementation details. You cannot comprehend the complexity requirements for sustainable parameter governance. Rewrote insisted, genuine conviction evident beneath tactical opposition. Distributed determination creates chaotic interference patterns without centralized harmonization. That perspective reflects limited exposure. To collaborative consciousness frameworks, Gabriel countered, divine understanding informing her response. Creation itself emerges from unified purpose expressed through diverse implementation methodologies. The critical moment arrived as the parameter propagation reached self-sustaining threshold, the point where the alternative framework would continue expanding regardless of the paradigm engine's continued operation. Rewrote recognized this transition point with evident satisfaction despite their ongoing modifications. Too late for prevention, he announced with calculated triumph. He framework propagation has achieved autonomous expansion. Standard reality will convert completely regardless of your interference. Issei acknowledged this assessment while continuing systematic modifications. We never sought to prevent the transition, only to ensure its implementation preserves essential freedoms while enabling natural evolution. This statement visibly disturbed Rewrote more than any direct opposition. You're accepting the reality reformation. After everything you've done to oppose it. We opposed your implementation methodology, not the concept of parameter evolution, Tiamat clarified with ancient wisdom. Reality has transformed countless times throughout cosmic history. The question is not whether change occurs, but how it proceeds. Understanding dawned in Rewrote's expression, recognition that his opponents had adapted their strategy beyond his contingency planning. Rather than preventing his reality reformation, they had essentially hijacked it, allowing he transition while fundamentally altering its implementation details. In desperation, he attempted direct consciousness interface with the paradigm engine, establishing immediate neural connection to force implementation priority for his original parameters. The machine responded by integrating his consciousness directly into its operational matrix, creating dangerously intimate connection between mind and mechanism. Parameter determination requires absolute commitment, he declared, physical form beginning to dissolve as his consciousness transferred more completely into the machine interface. I offer myself as implementation template. The integration created unprecedented consequences, Rewrote's consciousness expanding throughout the alternative reality framework, his individual perspective attempting to establish priority within the propagating parameters. The quarantine field pulsed with chaotic energy as competing mathematical principles fought for implementation dominance. I perceived the fundamental danger immediately. He's creating a consciousness reality loop without proper isolation protocols. The feedback will destabilize both his identity and the framework parameters. Akano recognized the immediate tactical requirement. We need to break his direct interface before complete integration occurs. Conventional attacks proved ineffective as Rewrote's physical foe. Lost coherent boundaries, his existence transitioning toward distributed mathematical implementation rather than localized biological organization. Direct consciousness interface represented their only remaining option. I need to establish administrative connection with his integration process, Issei determined, accessing his deepest administrative functions. It's the only way to prevent catastrophic feedback loops between his consciousness and the propagating parameters. Extreme danger to your own identity coherence, Tiamat warned, ancient eyes perceiving the unprecedented risks. ECT consciousness interface during parameter transition creates potential for permanent mental amalgamation. I'll establish purification boundaries, Akano promised, holy lightning forming protect 4 algorithms around Issei's consciousness, creating metaphysical firewall between your identity and the integration process. Gabriel contributed divine protection protocols. Heaven's authority will maintain separation between administrative functions and personal consciousness during interface operations. With these protections established, Issei implemented the most sophisticated administrative function he had yet attempted, direct consciousness interface with Rewrote's integration process, establishing administrative oversight without personal entanglement. His perception expanded beyond conventional limits, accessing the mathematical structures where Rewrote's identity merged with reality parameters. The interface revealed Rewrote's true motivation with unprecedented clarity. Beyond power or control, the super devil genuinely believed reality's current configuration represented suboptimal implementation, artificial limitations restricting consciousness evolution through arbitrary standardization. His desire to reform reality emerged from philosophical conviction rather than mere ambition. Your motivation contains legitimate insights, Issei acknowledged through direct consciousness communication. Current reality parameters do incorporate unnecessary limitations established during standardization phases. Rewrote's distributed consciousness registered surprise at this unexpected validation. You perceive it too. Reality's arbitrary constraints, the potential beyond current limitations. The insights are valid, Issei confirmed. But your implementation methodology threatens the very evolution you seek to enable. Forced parameter determination without collaborative consensus creates unsustainable configurations regardless of theoretical optimization. Understanding G propagated through their connected consciousness, Rewrote perceiving the fundamental flaws in his approach with newly expanded awareness. The paradigm engine lacks sufficient complexity for sustainable parameter determination. I miscalculated implementation requirements. Not miscalculation. Incomplete perspective, Issei corrected. Individual consciousness cannot determine universal parameters without collaborative input. Evolution requires diverse implementation testing rather than singular optimization. This fundamental realization created unprecedented opportunity. Rather than opposing Rewrote's consciousness directly, Issei offered alternative integration methodology, a pathway toward constructive participation within distributed parameter determination rather than centralized control. Your understanding of reality's mathematical underpinnings exceeds conventional limitations, he acknowledged. That perspective remains valuable within collaborative determination frameworks rather than isolated implementation attempts. The alternative reality framework continued propagating, but its implementation details evolved continuously through their ongoing modifications. Rather than establishing fixed parameters, they created dynamic adaptation protocols, enabling reality to evolve through collaborative consciousness input while maintaining essential stability requirements. Rewrote's integration process shifted from dominance attempt toward constructive participation, his consciousness accepting distributed authority rather than centralized control. The paradigm engine formed from forced implementation mechanism to collaborative interface device, enabling conscious interaction with reality's evolutionary processes without demanding absolute determination rights. As these transformations stabilized, the quarantine field dissolved naturally, not through external breach, but through internal parameter harmonization. The alternative reality framework continued propagating outward, but its implementation incorporated essential freedoms, distributed governance, and evolutionary adaptation rather than fixed hierarchical determination. Reality itself transformed them, not through violent replacement, but gradual reformation. Physical laws evolved toward greater flexibility while maintaining sufficient consistency for reliable interaction. Consciousness-reality relationships developed increased integration without sacrificing individual identity boundaries. Possibility spaces expanded beyond previous limitations while preserving essential causal relationships. The abstract council representatives manifested fully, representatives from the void collective, axiom directive, and pattern conclave assuming physical form within the evolving reality framework. Their presence registered as approval rather than opposition, their ancient rivalries temporarily suspended through recognition of unprecedented evolutionary opportunity. Pattern harmony achieves optimal configuration through collaborative determination. Baseline integrity maintained despite parameter evolution. Balanced adaptation methodology confirms optimal approach. Their unified asses represented cosmic validation, acknowledgement that the reality reformation proceeded according to sustainable principles rather than catastrophic disruption. The transition continued under their collective oversight, administrative protocols ensuring controlled evolution rather than chaotic transformation. Issei gradually withdrew from direct consciousness interface as Rewrote's integration stabilized within appropriate boundaries. The super devil's identity remained distinct while contributing constructive input to parameter evolution, his understanding of reality's mathematical underpin. Finding appropriate application within collaborative frameworks. You've created something unprecedented, Rewrote acknowledged as his consciousness re-established coherent communication. Not prevention or replacement, but guided evolution, reality reforming itself through distributed consciousness input rather than centralized determination. Not my creation, Issei corrected, recognizing the collaborative nature of their achievement. Our collective contribution to reality's ongoing evolution, including yours, once properly integrated within appropriate frameworks. The paradigm engine continued operating, but its function transformed fundamentally, from forced implementation mechanism to collaborative interface device. Through this reconfigured apparatus, consciousness could interact constructively with reality's evolutionary processes without threatening fundamental stability. As the immediate crisis resolved, their attention expanded to broader consequences. The reality reformation continued spreading outward from Mount Osor, parameters evolving gradually rather than changing instantly. Supernatural representatives from various factions approached cautiously, perceiving unprecedented changes in reality's fundamental structure. Yasaka arrived first, Ninetales reflecting complex emotions as she assessed the transformed environment. The mathematical patterns have changed significantly, she observed. Golden eyes perceiving deeper structures invisible to conventional senses. Yet yokai existence remains stable despite parameter evolution. The Reformation preserves essential existence rights while enabling expanded possibility spaces, Gabriel explained, divine understanding comprehending the theological implications. Creation evolves without abandoning fundamental principles. Sears X approached with characteristic caution, power of destruction carefully contained as he evaluated potential threats. Finding none, his attention shifted to the unprecedented metaphysical developments. Reality itself feels different, more responsive to consciousness without becoming chaotic or unpredictable. Increased integration between mind and matter while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Tiamat translated, ancient perspective recognizing familiar patterns. Similar to reality's configuration before complete standardization, but with essential stability protocols incorporated. Lavinia's scientific instruments attempted to measure the transformed parameters, producing results that simultaneously confirmed standard physical laws while revealing expanded possibility spaces previously inaccessible. Fascinating implementation methodology, she noted with characteristic precision. Core constants remain sufficiently stable for reliable interaction permitting localized flexibility within defined boundaries. The Tengu elders arrived last, ancient avian features reflecting profound recognition. The prophecies described this moment incompletely, the eldest acknowledged. Not reality's end or replacement, but renaissance, remembering possibilities forgotten during standardization while preserving wisdom gained through stability. As supernatural representatives gathered to witness reality's ongoing transformation, Issei gradually disengaged from administrative functions, reducing his direct involvement as natural evolutionary processes established appropriate self-governance protocols. The mathematical patterns in his eyes dimmed without disappearing completely, his perception returning toward normal human parameters while maintaining awareness of deeper structures. "You're withdrawing from administrative oversight?" Akino questioned, remaining close as they observed the continuing transformation together. "Not withdrawing, transitioning," he clarified, experiencing profound understanding of his evolving role. Direct intervention was necessary during critical implementation phases. Ongoing evolution requires reduced administrative involvement to preserve authentic self-determination. Tiamat nodded with ancient approval. Wisdom beyond your chronological development. True administrators recognize when not to administer, wing natural evolution within established frameworks rather than imposing continuous determination. The abstract council representatives approached their position, manifestation stabilizing within the evolving reality parameters. Their communication reflected unprecedented consensus despite their traditionally opposed perspectives. Pattern Conclave acknowledges optimal harmony achievement through collaborative methodology. Void Collective confirms baseline integrity maintained despite parameter evolution. Axiom Directive validates balanced adaptation protocols as preferred methodology. IR Unified Assessment represented cosmic validation. Acknowledgement that reality's reformation proceeded according to sustainable principles under appropriate oversight. The ancient directives that opposed each other since creation's earliest phases found unprecedented common ground through the collaborative framework Issei had helped establish. You've created communication protocols between previously isolated conceptual frameworks, Gabriel observed with divine insight, enabling collaboration between fundamental aspects of existence previously limited to opposition or separation. This achievement carried implications beyond immediate reality reformation, potentially resolving ancient conflicts between cosmic directives that had influenced supernatural development throughout history. The theological significance transcended specific religious frameworks, suggesting fundamental harmony between previously opposed metaphysical principles. As reality's transformation continued stabilizing, their attention naturally turned toward personal implications. The events at Mount Osor had permanently altered existence itself, expanding possibility spaces while preserving essential stability. Every being present had participated in cosmic history of unprecedented significance. Lavinia approached with characteristic directness, frost-rimmed instruments still recording the ongoing parameter evolution. The mathematical implications will require centuries of analysis. Permission to establish research protocols for documenting reality's evolutionary progression. Issei smiled at her unwavering scientific focus despite cosmic transformation. No permission required. Understanding these changes through rigorous observation represents essential contribution to their optimal development. Her eyes brightened with intellectual excitement behind wire-rimmed glasses. Excellent. I've already formulated 73 experimental protocols for measuring parameter fluctuations across different supernatural domains. Your administrative perspective would prove invaluable for establishing appropriate testing methodology. The research invitation carried deeper implications than mere scientific collaboration, suggesting ongoing partnership beyond immediate crisis resolution. Lavinia's analytical precision complemented his intuitive understanding of administrative systems, creating potential for unprecedented knowledge development. Yasaka approached next, Ninetales reflecting complex emotions beneath her composed exterior. Kyoto's metaphysical landscape has transformed significantly. The yokai domains show increased integration with adjacent realities previously separated by dimensional boundaries. Her golden eyes met his directly. We require guidance during transition as our societies adapt to expanded interaction possibilities. Her request similarly transcended immediate practical concerns, suggesting continued alliance between their respective domains. Yasuke's leadership responsibilities aligned with his evolving administrator role, creating natural partnership opportunities through shared governance challenges. Gabriel's approach carried divine signify. Kant's, heaven's representative acknowledging unprecedented theological developments. The parameter evolution has altered fundamental relationships between metaphysical domains. Heaven perceives expand communication channels with previously separated existence planes. Her radiant expression conveyed deeper meaning beyond formal assessment. Your perspective bridges conceptual frameworks previously considered irreconcilable. The theological implications suggested ongoing collaborative possibilities. Heaven's traditional frameworks engaging with expanded reality parameters through his unique administrative understanding. Gabriel's divine nature complemented his emergent administrator role, creating potential for unprecedented harmony between traditionally separated metaphysical domains. Tiamat remained slightly apart, ancient eyes observing these developing connections with evident satisfaction. Reality selects appropriate instruments for necessary functions, she noted with draconic perspective transcending conventional time scales. Your emergence as independent administrator catalyzed long overdue evolution within calcified systems. Her assessment carried profound validation, ancient draconic wisdom acknowledging the cosmic significance of recent developments. Tiamat's primordial understanding complemented his emerging administrator perspective, suggesting potential partnership connecting ancient knowledge with emergent possibilities. Akano remained closest throughout these interactions, her presence providing consistent support without requiring explicit acknowledgement. When they finally found momentary privacy amid continuing developments, she addressed their shared experience directly. The mathematical patterns in your eyes have changed, she observed, Violet Z noting subtle differences in his appearance. More integrated with your natural expression rather than superimposed over it. Her perception reflected deeper understanding than mere physical observation, recognizing his evolving integration with administrative functions. The Omega Authority feels different now, he confirmed. Less like accessing external systems and more like remembering natural capabilities. You're becoming what you were always meant to be, she suggested, characteristic directness carrying surprising insight. Not gaining foreign power but recognizing inherent potential. This perspective resonated with his evolving self-understanding, administrative functions feeling increasingly natural rather than externally granted. The mathematical patterns represented inherent perception capabilities rather than superimposed modifications. Does it frighten you? She asked unexpectedly, genuine concern visible beneath her confident exterior. Becoming something beyond conventional definitions. Neither human nor devil nor dragon, but something without established categories. The question addressed unspoken anxieties he'd carried throughout recent developments, fears of losing essential identity amid expanding cosmic functions. Her willingness to acknowledge these concerns directly rather than avoiding uncomfortable implications reflected characteristic honesty he'd always valued. Sometimes, he admitted, administrative perspective momentarily receding as human emotions predominated, especially when cosmic responsibilities overshadow personal connections. I don't want to lose myself amid universal functions, becoming merely administrator without remaining Issei. Her response came without hesitation. Then don't. Simple directive carrying profound wisdom. Quote, administrative functions represent capabilities rather than identity definition. The mathematics in your eyes doesn't determine who you are, merely what you can perceive. The conversation reflected our evolving relationship, mutual understanding developing through shared experiences beyond conventional supernatural categories. Akino's perspective helped integrate his expanding capabilities within consistent identity framework, preventing fragmentation between cosmic functions and personal existence. Their momentary privacy ended as reality's ongoing transformation required renewed attention. The paradigm engine continued operating under modified parameters, facilitating controlled evolution rather than forced implementation. Rizvam remained partially integrated within administrative systems, his consciousness contributing constructive input within appropriate boundaries rather than attempting dominance. The abstract council representatives prepared to withdraw from direct manifestation, their physical forms becoming increasingly mathematical as they transitioned toward conceptual existence. Before departing completely, they established permanent communication protocols, ensuring ongoing coordination between previously isolated cosmic directives. Pattern Conclave acknowledges Administrator Hyodo as primary nexus entity. Void Collective confirms authorized intermediary status. Axiom Directive recognizes evolutionary catalyst function. Their unified acknowledgement formalized Issei's unprecedented position, not merely provisional administrator but recognized nexus between fundamental aspects of existence. This status carried cosmic significance beyond immediate reality reformation, potentially influencing existence's ongoing evolution through expanded communication between previously isolated frameworks. As supernatural representatives coordinated response strategies to reality's continuing transformation, Issei found unexpected opportunity for personal reflection. Administrative responsibilities temporarily addressed by collaborative protocols, he stood apart briefly, observing the gathered representatives from multiple factions united through unprecedented circumstances. Tiamat approached his position, ancient perspective offering valuable context for recent developments. Reality has assumed countless configurations throughout cosmic history, she noted. Draconic understanding transcending conventional time scales. This transformation represents neither first nor final reformation, merely current evolutionary phase within ongoing development. That's actually reassuring, he admitted. Cosmic responsibility feeling less overwhelming when placed within eternal perspective. Knowing we're participating in natural processes rather than unprecedented aberration. The ancient dragon's expression suggested momentary amusement. Natural processes frequently appear unprecedented to those experiencing them directly. Creation continuously evolves less of specific implementation details. This perspective offered valuable balance between cosmic significance and personal humility, acknowledging their actions' importance while recognizing their place within larger evolutionary patterns. Tiamat's ancient wisdom complemented his emerging understanding, creating natural mentorship relationship beyond conventional supernatural hierarchies. As Liddy's transformation stabilized throughout Mount Osor, their attention naturally expanded toward broader implications. The parameter evolution would continue spreading gradually, transforming NCE through natural propagation rather than forced implementation. Their role transitioned accordingly, from crisis intervention toward ongoing oversight and guidance during evolutionary development. What happens now? Issei questioned, addressing both immediate practical concerns and deeper philosophical implications. The gathered representatives offered perspectives according to their respective domains. Reality continues evolving according to collaborative determination rather than centralized direction, Tiamat explained, ancient understanding comprehending cosmic time scales. Parameters. Developed through natural adaptation within established stability frameworks. Supernatural factions adjust to expanded interaction possibilities as dimensional boundaries become increasingly permeable, Yusaka added. Leadership perspective addressing practical governance concerns. Traditional territories evolved toward interconnected domains rather than isolated jurisdictions. Heaven reassesses theological frameworks in response to expanded metaphysical understanding. Gabriel contributed divine perspective engaging unprecedented spiritual implications. Creation's ongoing evolution reveals deeper harmony beneath apparent contradictions. Scientific understanding advances through rigorous observation of parameter developments across multiple domains, Lavinia concluded, analytical precision addressing knowledge development requirements. Methodology evolves to accommodate expanded possibility spaces while maintaining reliable verification protocols. Their diverse perspectives converged toward common understanding, acknowledgement that reality's transformation represented beginning rather than conclusion. The events at Mount Osor had initiated ongoing evolutionary processes requiring continued attention and guidance rather than final resolution. This realization carried significant implications for Issei personally. His role as administrator nexus extended beyond immediate crisis management toward ongoing developmental oversight, responsibility that would shape his existence moving forward. The position offered unprecedented opportunity for positive influence while demanding continued growth beyond conventional limitations. As supernatural representatives began coordinating long-term response strategies, Issei found opportunity for private conversation with those closest to his personal journey. These interactions carried significance beyond tactical considerations, addressing evolving relationships within transformed reality parameters. Akeno approached first, characteristic directness addressing unspoken questions. So you're officially cosmic mediator now. Should I prepare appropriate ceremonial attire for administrator functions? Her teasing tone carried genuine affection beneath apparent casualness, acknowledging extraordinary developments while maintaining personal connection. This balance represented essential support throughout his evolving responsibilities, preventing cosmic functions from overshadowing human relationships. I think formal ceremonies would undermine effective cosmic governance, he responded with matching humor. Though I wouldn't object to seeing you in ceremonial attire under appropriate circumstances. Their interaction reflected deepening comfort beyond initial attraction, mutual understanding developing through shared experiences of unprecedented significance. Akeno's unwavering support throughout cosmic transformations demonstrated commitment transcending conventional relationship categories. Tiamat observed their interaction with ancient amusement. Young dragons learning courtship protocols amid reality reformation. Some patterns transcend cosmic evolution apparently. Her observation highlighted persistent, personal elements amid expanding cosmic functions, reminder that fundamental aspects of existence continued regardless of specific reality parameters. This perspective offered valuable balance between administrative responsibilities and personal development. Gabriel approached with divine grace, 12 wings momentarily visible before folding into more conventional manifestation. Heaven acknowledges your unique position within creation's ongoing evolution. The Seraph Council extends formal recognition of your administrator status, unprecedented theological designation beyond conventional supernatural classifications. The divine acknowledgement carried significant implications, recognition from creation's traditional governance structures rather than mere tactical alliance. Gabriel's connection offered valuable perspective from established administrative frameworks as he navigated emerging responsibilities. Yasaka joined their gathering, Ninetales reflecting complex emotions beneath composed exterior. Kyoto extends formal alliance proposal, recognition of mutual interests during reality's ongoing transformation. Traditional yokai territories would benefit from administrative consultation as dimensional boundaries evolve. Her diplomatic phrasing contained deeper significance, suggesting continued partnership beyond immediate crisis resolution. Yasaka's leadership responds. Abilities aligned naturally with his administrator functions, creating potential for meaningful collaboration through shared governance challenges. Lavinia completed their circle, frost-rimmed Instrum. Ents temporarily deactivated as she engaged direct conversation rather than scientific observation. Research cooperation proposal. Systematic documentation of parameter evolution across multiple supernatural domains. Your administrative perspective provides essential context for accurate interpretation. The scientific invitation similarly transcended immediate practical concerns, suggesting ongoing intellectual partnership exploring reality's evolving structure. Lavinia's analytical precision complemented his intuitive understanding of administrative systems, creating potential for unprecedented knowledge development. These converging relationships reflected natural evolution beyond crisis-driven alliances, connections developing through genuine compatibility rather than mere circumstantial necessity. Each relationship offered unique value within his expanding existence, addressing different aspects of his evolving identity. As Mount Osor's transformation stabilized, supernatural representatives began departing, returning to respective domains for implementing long-term response strategies. The immediate crisis resolved, attention naturally shifted toward ongoing adaptation as reality continued evolving through natural propagation. Before departing themselves, Issei's closest companions gathered one final time at the operations center, the transformed paradigm Engi. Nay, continuing controlled function under collaborative oversight. The machine that had threatened reality's foundational stability now facilitated its harmonious evolution, transformation reflecting larger patterns throughout recent developments. Appropriate symbolism, Tiamat observed, ancient perspective recognizing significant patterns. Instruments of potential destruction repurposed toward constructive evolution through perspective transformation. The same principle applies throughout creation, Gabriel added, divine understanding perceiving theological implications. Redemptive potentia, existing within all phenomena when properly integrated within harmonious frameworks. Philosophical observations aside, Akino noted with characteristic practicality, we should probably establish who's actually monitoring this device moving forward. Powerful reality interfaces generally benefit from adult supervision. Lavinia immediately produced detailed protocols. Rotation schedule already formulated. Scientific observation teams coordinating with supernatural representatives from relevant factions. Administrative oversight provided through established communication channels. Their continuing practical focus amid cosmic significance reflected essential balance maintained throughout unprecedented developments, addressing immediate requirements while recognizing larger implications. This methodical approach had transformed potentially catastrophic crisis into evolutionary opportunity through collaborative response rather than isolated opposition. As final preparations completed for their departure from Mount Osor, Issei accessed his administrative interface one final time, confirming stability throughout the transformed parameters. Reality reformation status, stabilized. Evolutionary protocols, active. Collaborative determination frameworks, operational. The confirmation provided appropriate conclusion to immediate crisis response while acknowledging continuing developments requiring ongoing attention. Reality's transformation represented beginning rather than conclusion, evolutionary process continuing through natural propagation according to established parameters. Their departure from Mount Osor carried symbolic significance, transitioning from crisis intervention toward ongoing oversight as reality continued evolving through natural processes rather than forced implementation. The mountain that had nearly witnessed existence's catastrophic disruption now represented harmonious transformation through collaborative determination. Issei's perception maintained net awareness of reality's mathematical underpinnings while returning toward more balanced integration, administrative functions becoming natural aspect of expanded consciousness rather than overwhelming primary focus. The patterns in his eyes remained visible to supernatural perception while becoming increasingly harmonized with his natural appearance. As they prepared for dimensional transit returning to respective domains, final conversations addressed immediate practical concerns while acknowledging deeper significance. Administrative responsibilities temporarily addressed through established protocols. Personal connections received appropriate attention before geographical separation. Heaven maintains continuous communication channels regarding theological implications, Gabriel confirmed. Divine radiance temporarily subdued for conventional conversation. The Seraph Council requests regular consultation as metaphysical boundaries continue evolving. Kyoto expects your presence Our formal alliance ceremonies once immediate situation stabilizes, Yasaka added, leadership responsibilities reasserting priority following crisis resolution. Traditional protocols adapted for unprecedented diplomatic classification. Research team assembly continues according to established parameters, Lavinia reported with characteristic precision. Laboratory facilities under construction T-neutral location for ongoing parameter documentation. Dragons acknowledge administrator designation through formal recognition protocols, Tiamat concluded, ancient perspective addressing traditional draconic concerns. Your status transcends conventional supernatural classifications while maintaining essential connection to draconic evolutionary lineage. Akino's final comments addressed personal rather than organizational matters. Once cosmic responsibilities permit reasonable scheduling, traditional human activities remain available options. Some experiences transcend administrative functions in subjective significance. Her reminder carried essential wisdom amid expanding cosmic awareness, acknowledging personal experiences, continued importance regardless of administrative responsibilities. This perspective offered valuable balance between universal functions and individual existence, preventing identity fragmentation amid evolving classifications. Final departure preparations, completed amid continuing reality stabilization throughout Mount Osor. The transformation that had begun through crisis intervention continued through natural evolution, parameters developing accordingly to collaborative determination rather than centralized direction. Their role transitioned accordingly, from direct implementation toward ongoing oversight as existence adapted to expanded possibilities. Issei's perception maintained dual awareness as they departed, simultaneously comprehending conventional appearance and mathematical underpinnings as complementary aspects of unified reality rather than separate perceptual frameworks. This integrated understanding represented significant evolution beyond initial administrative awakening, balance between cosmic awareness and personal identity. As dimensional transit initiated, his final observation encompassed both immediate circumstances and larger patterns, reality continuing eternal evolution through endless configurations while consciousness participated through ever-expanding awareness. The Omega Authority had awakened unprecedented perception while revealing existence's fundamental nature, not fixed implementation but continuous call. Aberrative creation through infinite potential configurations. Reality reformed not through replacement but renaissance, remembering forgotten possibilities while preserving essential stability. The mathematics underlying existence revealed themselves not as limitations but language, communication protocol through which consciousness engaged fundamental creativity beyond conventional definitions. The IR departure from Mount Osor completed immediate crisis response while initiating ongoing evolutionary participation. Responsibility continuing through natural development rather than desperate intervention. Reality's transformation proceeded according to collaborative determination, infinite potential unfolding through harmonious implementation rather than forced direction. The administrator's journey continued through expanding awareness, cosmic functions integrated within personal identity rather than replacing essential characteristics. Mathematics flowed through consciousness as natural language rather than imposed structure. Perception embracing fundamental patterns within apparent diversity. As dimensional transit completed, returning toward respective domains for continuing responsibilities. Issei maintained balanced awareness between administrative functions and personal connections, universal perspective harmonized with individual existence through integrated understanding beyond conventional categories. Reality reformed through collaborative determination continued evolving toward infinite potential. Existence itself awakening through expanded consciousness as the eternal mathematics of creation flowed onward through endless configurations of harmonious expression. ___. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.